really enjoyed that episode we did on the serpent worship. It did really well. A lot of people were resonating with it. So I said, I want to do another episode on something along those lines. And so Gabe had hit me up and was like, hey, I have this research that I've been doing, and it's right up our alley, where we're going to be talking about the Greek pantheon and what I believe is the invocation by the elites. Because at the end of the day, it's the gods that they worship, right? It's all about putting out this energy that they believe will get them somewhere. I don't know, but we'll let these two break it down. Can you, ladies first, Carla, can you tell us where we can find your work, your book, your Instagram, your podcast?
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have my book with me actually right now, but my book is called She Who Hunts, Artemis, the Goddess Who Changed the World. You can find it anywhere where you get your books. You can find me across social media at everywhere, at Artemis Expert. And my podcast, if you're into goddesses and symbols and mythology, is called the Goddess Project Podcast. And it's on Spotify and on YouTube. And I'm sure, Juan, you'll have all the links somewhere. So follow me if you like that stuff. Yeah.
Slick Dissident, where can people find your YouTube? Just YouTube, right?
Pretty much. I'm just on YouTube with my personal channel. And I call it a shared learning experience. You know, I'm kind of a jack of all trades with my research. I just essentially share a lot of my own learning experience and the process with a lot of very imaginative, conspiracy-oriented analysis. And so you can come over there and kind of see where I come to these wild conclusions. I consider myself like a master of correspondence. I adhere very closely to the Hermetic principles. And my favorite of the 7 Hermetic principles is correspondence. So if it looks like, if it sounds like, it is like. And that is a very important foundation of magic. And it grants to me a very magical worldview. I see things, I think, in a very unique way. So, but I also get down with the weaving spiders' webs. It's one of my circles of influence. On Saturday nights, we weave all the way into Sunday mornings. And then I also get down on Innerverse podcast with Chance Garton, and he's on YouTube and Rockfin as well. So those are some of the spots you'll find me.
Right on.
And I bought your book today, Carla. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see what you think of it as well. And what else you might find in there.
I don't know if you're going to like it, Carla, because he said that Artemis is not in a good place on his tree of the Capitol Hill. So I don't know.
She has a very important role to play. And
no, Gabe, that's my boo. So tread carefully, my friend.
Totally.
So here we go. And I want to start off by showing something that is really interesting. The rotunda at the Capitol Hill. And let's see here if I can find a high res. So the apotheosis of Washington. And it's got your boy Washington, George Washington, here in the center on, I'm trying to zoom in, but it won't let me. Anyways, you have Poseidon, you have Lady Liberty or something, and then you have a rainbow with George Washington sitting here, almost like a god. And this is in the rotunda at the Capitol building. You have Hermes here, so it's a very alchemical painting, obviously drenched in symbolism. And I want to also add to make sure to follow us, because Gabe and I have some very special episodes planned here coming up very soon, where what I say, I'm cooking with the fire in the alchemical cave, and it's gonna be fire. So stay tuned for that, because we're gonna be recording that very soon, and this is gonna be a banger. I know it's gonna be a banger. So here we are. But I wanted to bring this up because I learned about this recently, and what were they thinking when the guy who painted this painted it up here and was like, hey, let's make this guy look like some sort of god?
And now that you say that, Juan, I went to Washington many, many, many years ago now, and I did a conference paper there. And I didn't walk inside. I didn't see this ceiling, but I was outside, And outside of it, there is a fountain of Zeus with a bunch of nymphs and some other, actually, I don't remember exactly who was in front, but I remember having this exact reaction of like, what are these nymphs and Zeus? Let's see if you can find it.
You said Capitol Hill?
Is it Capitol Hill in Washington? Sorry, my American.
This one?
Is it that one? I think so. Yeah.
The Court of Neptune in front of the Library of Congress, Thomas Jefferson, of course.
Okay, so it's Neptune, not Zeus. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of. I mean, Zeus is like the head god, right? And then
yeah. So there's Neptune, and there's a bunch of and so as a visitor, right, and not an American, I was like, this is so. I mean, for me, I took it as obviously Roman Republic, right? I mean, the USA built itself around the Roman Republic and all that kind of stuff. So that connection is immediate. But I just thought it was so fascinating that the mythology that's supposed to be fairy tale-ish, at least we're supposed to, is central. It's like right in front, and it's powerful. It's huge, this fountain. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that inside Capitol Hill on that ceiling, you have those symbols of power.
Yeah.
And I think that might be Athena. I want to say this is Athena with the eagle of Zeus right there.
Lady Liberty.
Lady Liberty.
Lady Liberty?
Yeah. So we got into this on the Marvelous Demystifiers, this particular image. And one thing that stands out to me, I have a friend who's like incredibly patriotic. He's very like ingrained into politics, and he believes to his dying breath that the founding fathers were Christian, and they came here to preserve Christian morals and Christian dogma. And for this to be placed in front of him would cause a short circuit, because this, in my theory, is there are three forms of Kabbalah. There is the Christian Kabbalah with the C,
QKC,
Hebrew with the K, and then there's Greek with a Q. And we all know that the Bible was originally written in Greek.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the Greek systems of mythos are the most deeply ingrained. They're the foundational, the fundamental, the oldest. They're the granddaddy.
Yeah.
And so I find that the psychological implications of Greek mythology are incredibly important today.
And by that, you mean like as far as American politics, not history.
Right. In terms of, world events on the world stage.
I just had deja vu. We're supposed to be here, by the way. So I just,
all right.
When I was Googling something, I've seen it before. So here we are.
Nice.
Here we are.
So we did a breakdown on that rotunda, and we were doing it in correspondence to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And it was a really fascinating revelation, because in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, he goes on trial with, I believe, 6 different members of a parallel universe with a court that's going to put him on a tribunal. And the members of the court are actually
And that's as quick as the lizards hit us when you're spitting that stuff.
Caricatures
Slick, you cut off there completely, bro.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very bad. And
He's cutting off again.
There you go, brother. See if you can jump out and jump back in, because when you get too close to the truth like that, they come a knocking, and they don't like that. So they start to suppress you. Again, it's weird because I do episodes with people all the time and never have any issues. And then when you get to controversial topics such as this, where you're kind of sort of trampling on their gods, that's what people need to understand, because this is very sensitive, and some people would take it a certain type of way because, again, it's the gods that they worship. So when your boy thinks that they were Christians, that's why I said in God we trust, but which God are we talking about? Because we know that there's different interpretations of the same God. And I mean, there's a whole...
I have a question. Oh, we lost. I have a question for Gabe. I'm still wondering why that's Lady Liberty and not Athena?
I'm going to look it up for you. I'm going to look up the mythology on the...
Because doesn't Lady Liberty, what that symbolism, is that better, Gabe? Okay, you're back. I'm just wondering why that's the Lady Liberty and not Athena, because to me that like is screaming Athena right now. So is there a reason why they've identified that as Lady Liberty, or is that just the name that it's given for the painting? But it could be Athena. I mean, that is Athena. Sword,
Yes.
shield, the
Yep.
helmet, the eagle,
Mm-hmm.
her father's eagle.
Yeah.
Doesn't Lady Liberty... Well, what's the difference between Lady Liberty and Athena? Sorry, I'm taking you on a totally different track.
No, I'm glad you say that, because I think they have fused her. I think you're totally right, because she's battle ready. She's got the defensive shield.
Yeah.
And that's an important nuance to Athena, is that she's a defensive goddess. And it's Ares who goes on the offensive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So here we are. This is in this scene, armored freedom, sword raised and cape flying with a helmet and shield, reminiscent of those on the statue of freedom, tramples tyranny and kingly power. She is assisted by a fierce eagle carrying arrows and a thunderbolt. The official architect of the Capitol photograph is being made available for... So...
And you know what's... Sorry, now I'm going all over the place. But you know what's really fascinating too, Juan, now that you say that? Britannia...
Yeah.
in front of St. Paul's Cathedrals in London is also pretty much a adaptation of Athena. So much so that the first time, so in front of St. Paul's Cathedral, there is a group of statues.
What'd you call it?
Britannia, St. Paul's Cathedral. That's in London. But yeah, St. Paul's Cathedral. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see if we can see her. Nope.
So, rule Britannia.
No rule. Yeah, just Britannia.
This one?
There she is. See her here with the trident?
Oh,
So-
she's got... Wow.
And so when I first saw her, I thought this is Athena because look at her Aegeus with Medusa on it, right? But
Wow.
she's the trident of Neptune or Poseidon. And they're like, oh, no, this is Britannia. And I go, what? So anyway, I'm sidetracking you, but it just seems to me that Athena is now sort of adapted for this Lady Liberty and now for Britannia. Like there's all these sort of
Yeah.
And it's similar to the Capitol building too. It's got the dome.
Interesting, right?
It's always the dome, and I relate the dome because a lot of people need to understand that architecture. So an entire overlay, let's talk about Washington D.C. The entire overlay of Washington D.C. is occult. It's meant to invoke a certain type of energy, and these buildings themselves, again, back to the Pythagorean palaces, when they adhere to certain principles, which they do, they are able to encapsulate a higher dimension within that building. And if you look at the tomb of Christian Rosenkreuz, it's always got the oculus, it's always got the dome. It's something about the ascension of the soul and the way that the light comes in, that they are able to, again, either enter other states of consciousness, because it's only the initiate, right? Only the initiate that's able to see the occulted scaffolding that the architect, which is also a magician,
Yes.
only the initiates are able to see these hidden corridors, this corpo trasparente, which is this scaffolding that's there that was put in with the intention. It's invisible, but it's put in with a certain intention. So when you have these buildings, why do they all look the same? Or why do they all have the dome? Why do they all have these paintings? It's because of that, because these buildings are used as talismans in order to invoke certain magical powers or enhance magical powers. I'm 100% on board with that. Even if the people going in, again, the uninitiated aren't going to know anything that's happening. But for the ones that are initiated, they're going to know what to do, where to go. And it's a ceremony. When you have the Senate and all these things coming together, it's a ceremony. And they're invoking certain energies, even with the layout. I mean, you've pointed out, Gabe. And here they are putting these other gods with their faces on them, right? You got George Washington up top as this on top of a rainbow.
Right? He's sitting in Zeus's place, totally.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, and they put Benjamin Franklin is up there as well. I think Benjamin Franklin might be talking to maybe he's talking to Athena, because there's so many more characters around that rotunda.
So we have Minerva, goddess of wisdom.
And Minerva is Athena.
Okay, so you think
Minerva is the Roman Athena. Where is that? That's here.
Right here, yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
think-
And I was going to say, oh my goodness. What an
I think
interesting.
that's Athena, because she's got that spear, that crucial spear that she like.
She does.
You know, yeah, and she's talking to Ben Franklin. So real quick, I'll just summarize from the Doctor Strange movie. We were able to actually associate the characters from Doctor Strange who were on the tribunal. We were able to correspond them with the amendments of the Constitution. Amendments 1 through 8 are represented as caricatures in the film. And just when they're about to put Doctor Strange, who's wearing a Pluto, he's wearing the symbol of Pluto on his chest. He represents Pluto's return right now. We're going through a Pluto return from the founding fathers when they signed the Declaration. We are at a full cycle of Pluto, is right back where it started in February 20th of 2022. That's like all twos all across the board, two, all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And we just came through that return. So Doctor Strange is repping the Pluto, and he's on the tribunal, and he's talking to our constitutional amendments, but in comic book character form.
Okay.
And before the tribunal can complete putting him, deciding what to do with him, they get attacked by the Scarlet Witch. And
Right.
the Scarlet Witch, she represents the Eighth Amendment, which is unnecessary fines and punishment. And so
Unusual, right?
Right. So
yeah.
she's like irrationally charged, and she's coming to exact punishment. And then she commences to slaughter all of our constitutional amendments. And the way that she kills these caricatures of our amendments is incredibly poetic. And strangely, it has like this natural consequence, poetic correspondence to what the amendment means. So like our right to bear arms is this rubber-armed, Stretch Armstrong kind of guy. She just pulls his arms until he runs out of ammunition. So so he also represents 3D printing of firearms because he's made out of rubber. You can just produce your own firearms at home now. So he is both the printing press and your right to bear arms. And she kills him second. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But what was really crazy was I realized while I was doing the project and corresponding our constitutional amendments to caricatures in the film, I found out that they're also characters on the rotunda, which means in a crazy way that our constitutional amendments are archetypes.
Mm.
They are living archetypes, and we uphold them and live by them. They rule over what is right and wrong.
That's probably Hephaestus. Sorry, Gabe, I don't want to bother you. That's probably Hephaestus one.
You nailed it.
Am I right?
Vulcan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have never seen this image before. Sorry. Because I haven't been inside. I went to Washington, like I said, many, many years ago now.
Yes.
This image would have fascinated me even then as much as it does now.
Yes.
I mean, but do you think that I feel like it's so obvious that they've used a Greek pantheon. But do you think that this is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like American, like trying to connect with this great empire, great powers? Or do you think that they worship these divinities as well?
Both. I think both.
Yes. I think this is the scaffolding. This is the scaffolding of the Western psychology, of the Western mindset. And so the characters are immortalized and kept alive by the fact that we believe that the right to freedom of speech is intrinsic to the realm, should not even be questioned. And so in a very fascinating way, now here's what's amazing is that we've fused ourselves to the scaffolding of these archetypes in various ways. But what's amazing is the people who constructed this system of law, they knew that it would fall. And they know that it has an inevitable collapse. It has a life expectancy.
Okay.
And they know that we're coming into the late end of this new Roman Empire. Francis Bacon with his, the new Atlantis and that whole vision. Well, they knew that it would only hold in place for 248 years, which is a Plutonic return.
Interesting. I mean, for sure, no doubt that the American political system is built on the Roman political system and even the Roman Catholic Church, because if you look at St. Peter's Cathedral or St. Paul's Cathedral in Rome at the Vatican, has the same dome that you guys are talking about, has the same structure. So yeah, I think that's, I guess the most curious part is that you have evidence that they may be worshiping these divine beings. Now, for me, as a Greek historian, I would love to re-worship these divinities. I mean, in their old ways, and maybe break free of some of the limitations of monotheism, right? I don't know if that's controversial to say, but now that you're saying that they might also be worshiping, now I feel like, oh no.
I know. It's kind of heartbreaking. No. You want it to be personal, but there's something kind of sucks to think that somebody else already got there and might be messing up, or even painting a bad image on something that you are
perverting that.
Exactly.
Which the ancients held sacred, and now it may be in some way manipulated or depraved in some way.
I know it is. It's tough. It's tough because I find myself in the same way. I attach to certain characters, and then I find out that they have living embodiments today, and I'm like, ooh, no, I don't like them there. I would, So I think that something that I've done is I've taken the Greek pantheon. Particularly, I'll tell you my process was I took the story of Typhon.
Okay.
When Typhon came storming across the land and all of the gods were trembling in fear, and they ran and hid in Egypt. And it was Pan, who is like an agricultural deity, who gave them shelter, or he was clever enough to tell them to change into animals so that they could be overlooked. And so each one of the animals that they change into was actually kind of initiated me into finding the mystery, a deeper mystery of their archetype. And even their planetary correspondences become really revealed when they become these Egyptian animals. And so I took that story in the different animals that they changed into and their elemental correspondence to the planets, and then I started to fuse it onto the Enneagram because there are 8 gods who run and hide. In the 9th god, Pan, he gives them shelter, and then the dynamics of the roles that they play as that story rolls out, it puts them very powerfully into a personality quadrant of the 9 stations of the Enneagram. And by doing that, I realize that I'm seeing in the Greek stories the what I keep calling it the scaffolding or the skeletal framework of the human psychology and the human experience, which was just really revelatory. And so
it makes me think because you're talking about Pan occulted the other gods. He occulted them. He hid them away. Is this why they revere Pan so much? Like you got Crowley, Parsons, like the hymn to Pan, like they all worship this character. It's like the satyr, right? He's like the half man, half goat type entity.
Yeah. He always gets such a bad rep, I find.
So he's the good guy. I see your face. You're like,
yeah, he is. I mean, yeah. So we have to separate the Greeks from the founding fathers in the sense that I'm going to assume, and again, this is my assumption, that the Greeks had not foreseen that the founding fathers of the USA would use their gods in such ways, let's say, because they're about, 2,000 years apart, let's say, if not more. Okay. So Pan originally, yeah, he's just a trickster god. He's a fun god. He hangs around with nymphs. He drinks a lot of wine. They have a lot of sex. He's the god, he's a divine being of the wilderness. He's the wild, like he represents the wild, And then I think what happened, especially with Christianity, is they really took him as a satanic symbol.
Yeah.
Because now, like, look, that image is pretty much the image of Satan. And
Yeah.
that irks me because he was not originally evil.
Whoops, we're gonna have to censor that for. Can we show this on YouTube? I'm gonna have to censor this out.
I don't know, but the Greeks and Romans had especially the Romans had a very raw.
What's he doing to this goat? Oh man, okay, hold on.
Don't forget, this was a time when Zeus is coming down in a golden shower to impregnate women,
right?
Or a swan. You ever see the swan? And I can't remember the name of the woman's that Zeus. So Zeus is a swan, and he has sex with I think it's Danae.
You would know. You're the Greek expert.
I know. That's how great I am with names, you guys. Actually, that's one of the images that disturbs me the most, is him as a swan trying to have sex with this queen. But anyways, yeah, so for them, this was not, I don't want to say it was not unusual. I don't think that swans were literally having sex with women, but they understood the depravity of gods.
Right.
Like for the Greeks, they accepted that the gods were sometimes so bored or cruel that they did some very cruel and depraved things. So they have a different understanding of the divine. For them, the divine can be flawed in the sense that the divine can be jealous, can be angry, can be cruel, can be unfair. So the Greeks and the ancients, I should say, really lived by those sort of like, let me offer as much as I can to this god and hope and pray that I win favor. Where I think in Christianity, for example, it's the opposite. God is always good, benevolent, right? No matter what I do, God forgives me.
He doesn't rate people, but this God did.
Yeah, like there's a very, you don't even have to do anything or offer anything. I mean, we don't offer sacrifice anymore. You just have to be. So I don't know. Yeah. So if we're back at Pan, I think that he caught a bad rap. I think they took this image and they blended it with Dante's Inferno and right, and all the other Paradise Lost, like all those sort of Christian Lucifer talks, right? Yeah. Then they gave him Poseidon's trident. Pan doesn't have a trident.
Right, that's so true.
Water too much,
Totally. I think that we don't hear the myths with a visceral enough relationship. For one, like Zeus turning into a swan to seduce a woman, I think of that as having an erotic correspondence to feathers and using feathers in foreplay and in sexual, for arousal. And even the thing, like you said, golden shower. Some people are really into that.
Yeah.
And with Pan, goats, they use their smell to generate a sexual atmosphere. And and it's disgusting to us in our modern day sensitivities, but goats literally, to court a woman, a goat will pee on his own face. And then he'll splash it around so that the smell and the pheromones get her ready to go.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I think that there was
What the fuck?
There was a lot of like sexuality was not repressed in the way that we've repressed it through sort of Christianity. I think that they had a way better sense of humor. I mean, they had these festivals where they had these comedians that were very raw. The Romans are even worse. Like if you ever read Roman comedies or comedians for at least what we have left, the sarcasm is so sexual. It's so like you're if you read, like I've had to read some of it with my students and I would be like, I don't know how appropriate this is because they love those kind of stuff. But we may be looking at it now back, like we're looking back with a bit of a Christian bias.
Yeah.
Right?
How terrifying would it be if you saw this in the woods one night? Can you imagine, bro? I'd kick the shit out of this thing if I saw
Now, okay, when was this actually made or drawn? What's the date?
Let's see here. Bernard Picard, 16. This is 1754.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see here. Yeah. Transform Bernard. I don't know. It's got two guys on here.
Yeah, the Europeans did not do the Greeks any favor because when they rediscovered Greek myth, they really created some art that was in their imagination quite depraved. Not to say that, the Greeks themselves didn't do some sculptures that are quite interesting.
Yeah.
But this thing here that you've shown, Juan, that's 16th century. So that's a Christian imagination of the story of the Swan. Yeah.
So I want to share an image that I've put together recently, Carla, that I've had you in mind for a while about this. Because one of my favorite stories and one of my favorite characters is Hephaestus.
Okay, I love Hephaestus too. Vulcan.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And he has so many names and have you ever heard him called Arjun?
Oh, no, I don't. Maybe.
It might be more of a Hindu derivative. That Arjun was like a craftsman. I think Arjun in Hindu mythology, he made Indra's net. It was maybe Arjun's net. But
I think you're right.
Things get the further away from the source you go, the more you have to make exceptions for what you think is,
I think it said Agni because it's spelled Agni.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I needed to know that because that means fire, the fiery one.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So so he's Hephaestus, he's Arjun, or he's Agni, and he's Auriga, is the Charioteer. Have you ever heard that name, Carla?
I have, yes.
Yes. And you could probably go chronological. You could really stretch and make it chronological, like Vulcan begot Hephaestus, or maybe Hephaestus begot Vulcan, and then Auriga under that. And then there's even a real life historical character called Erichthonius. And Erichthonius is just one-to-one with Auriga and Hephaestus because he had serpent legs, he had lizard legs when he was born, and he had to go away from the society because they were uncomfortable by his appearance. And then he became a master craftsman and became the first one to construct a chariot. And then he comes back to civilization and he's riding on his glory in his new incarnation. So I wanted to share this with you. Vulcan is the god of the volcano. One of the most famous volcanoes, Mount Etna, is right at the tip of Mount Sicily, on Mount Sicily. Well, Auriga Hephaestus was kicked out of Olympus.
Yes.
And his volcano is getting kicked by the boot of Italy.
Wow.
So on a map, he's literally getting kicked out of Olympus.
Although he did return.
And he comes back and say, he gets kicked out 2 times by some accounts, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about his birth story? So
he's an immaculate conception, isn't he?
Exactly. Well, I don't know if it would even be an immaculate conception because Hera has him parthenogenetically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know so I consider that parthenogenesis because that's the only word I have for women birthing without the help of men. She births him out of spite. She conceives him out of spite and births him out of spite. Of course, you probably know that later the Greeks sort of made him, they said that he had a limp or that he was born, like you said, with lizard legs, or they have all these excuses because they wanted to say that he's not 100% perfect.
Yes.
Lizard legs.
Contribution.
Is that like a Abraxas kind of, sort of? Yes, snakes
Yeah,
for
so
legs.
originally the story is that he can't walk or that one of his legs is not operating properly as Hephaestus in the Greek. But then over time, people start to make up stories about like all his leg problems.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but really, what that is kind of like a cover up by the patriarchy, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
that he was not perfect. Because he's only from the women. He's not 100% perfect.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the Greeks used to believe that women were
Well,
uncooked eggs, right? Like they
that's
were uncooked eggs.
that's the whole thing with the homunculus, because Pythagoras and Aristotle and all these guys, they were pre-formationist, and spermism was a thing where they thought that pretty much sperm was the nectar of the gods, and that ties into the homunculus, because the homunculus to Paracelsus, at least in the 16th century, it was perfection because it wasn't tainted by the menstrual blood of the woman, which was only seen as the material substrate. And they were all very misogynist back then, and anything that had to do with women, like a basilisk was the opposite of a homunculus, and the basilisk is born from the menstrual blood of a woman because it's got the poisonous stare, right? Because it kills you with just by looking at you.
That's very Plato. I mean, the Plato literally said, like, like I said, women are uncooked, sort of. They're men that haven't been cooked long enough in the womb.
Because they don't have the appendage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there was this concept, but they couldn't deny that Hera, from an older tradition, and apparently many other pre-Greek goddesses could create, like Gaia creates the entire world all by herself. And then she creates Uranus, her consort.
These dudes were nerds, because I mean, women are beautiful, and I don't think I could live without women. So I don't know why they wanted to like demean them to the point where like, hey, let's just make homunculus. We don't need women.
Well,
because...
I don't think it's every dude. I mean, I don't want to say not all men on here, but I don't think it was every. I think what was happening is, as soon as, and this is a longer story, I don't know if we have a time for all that story, but as soon as property started being handed down from father to son, you have to have control over the reproduction system. And the one way to have control is, of course, to diminish it from sacred to just animalistic, let's say, or organic. And then you have to control it with virginity and all that history. So I'm not surprised that they were like, oh, yeah.
Game of Thrones. Like the whole Game of Thrones thing where in the newest one, the House of the Dragon, they wanted to marry the uncle with the niece and all this stuff, and it was very incestual, all these things, and it goes back to
maintain power, right? Because I mean, George Martin just borrows from history. I mean, he's 100%. It's not something that's new.
He's a lizard person.
He's just borrowing from history, so that's not unusual.
So I've been this is the United States Postal Service.
I like that.
And
it is.
Yeah, and it actually this proves that all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah,
is what they're telling us with this symbol. And so it is also a post and lintel, which is the old construct for the entrance to a house is very basic. It's just two posts and a lintel. And so when you want your mail delivered, you lift up the red flag to indicate so that the spirit of the plague will pass over your house and you'll find the favor of Yahweh. So, it's very interesting that our post office is incorporating, amalgamating all these cultural norms in a very fascinating way. So I just thought I'd share that the post and lintel and this is the leg end. This is the leg end, the legend. This is the legend of legends right here. Is the history of Italy. So I just kind of threw all that together, and I thought I'd share because I just love that Hephaestus literally is still getting kicked today off the boot toe of Italy.
Aww.
And so I found Auriga the Charioteer in the star map.
Okay.
He has a home in the constellations, and it is just off the corner of the bull. On one of the horns of Taurus.
Okay.
In the shape of his constellation is a pentagram. It's a pentagon shape, and so he has he's carrying a goat over his shoulder, and then his other hand is actually tucked behind his back, and he has 2 baby goats in his other hand. So he has 3 kids. He's got kid knees. He's got 2 kids by his kid knees, and he's got another larger goat whose name is Capilla, who's it almost makes it look like he has goat 2 heads. One is a goat, one is a man. So all of these characteristics of Auriga the Charioteer have really been fulfilling a vision of the importance of this character, because without getting too lost in the weeds, there is a myth out there that Benjamin Franklin initiated the signing of the Constitution in the middle of the night, so that the birth of the country was actually occulted, and we're under the sign of Taurus, under the bull.
Hey, Taurus gang, what's up?
Yeah, but you got it. Bullseye. So, and then everybody on the public side, so that's the private occulted history of the country. And on the public side, later on the next day, everybody thinks that we signed the Constitution under the light of day when the sun was high in the sky. And so Benjamin Franklin, that day when everybody's signing, he was out of sorts. He seemed to be spacey. And the people asked him, what were you thinking about? You seem to be really lost in thought in there. He was probably tripping on the mushrooms still from the rituals from the night before. When I think he had the Aldobrandini family line help sign under the bullseye, which is Aldebaran. So the Aldobrandinis have a claim on that star. And I think one of his co-signers was Aldobrandini. But anyway, they asked him, why were you in such a daze when everybody's busy doing, making history? And he says, I was just totally fixated on Washington's chair. I can't tell if that sun that is embossed onto the back of Washington's chair, I can't tell if it's a rising sun or a setting sun. And that's his quote. It's immortalized forever. And what is fascinating about that is he started the birth of the country on the early in the morning so that the country still had a lifespan to climb up. And if they had started the signing of the Declaration at the height of the day, the only way the country could go was down.
Ah, that's cool.
So metaphorically, he was saying, I'm giving us a longer lifespan so the chariot can ride up to the pinnacle of the annual declination of the sun. And then later on, we'll go through the fall, which is 248 years later with Pluto returning.
Is this a mushroom cup? It looks like a mushroom here.
That is interesting.
So it says, rising sun armchair. George Washington used his chair for nearly 3 months of the Constitutional Convention's continuous sessions. Benjamin Franklin is credited with immortalizing the chair at the close of the convention, observing, I have often looked at the picture behind the president without being able to tell whether it was rising or setting, but now at length I have the happiness to know that it is a rising sun and not a setting sun. So this is probably some sort of talisman that they were using for this ritual that they did, and it reminds me of something I'll get into here in a second. This is the most well-known version of the sentiments regarding the sun chair, but it is well-polished versions only. This well-polished version only dates to the 1987 State of the Union address by President Ronald Reagan, of course, Ronald Reagan, who was paraphrasing James Madison, because Ronald Reagan is the guy who was infatuated with Manly P. Hall, right? And he had an occultic circle, so of course it would be Ronald Reagan to tell the story, who was paraphrasing James Madison, who in turn was reporting the commentary he heard Franklin express. The original text as written into the Federal Record by Madison appeared as below. So this kind of sort of reminds me of the bathing of the stars, the alchemical process where the sun and the moon are bathing in the stars. Now, it's alchemy, so it's symbolic, and it's got a very dark connotation to it because the stars are, the blood of certain, what I'm saying? Like that whole thing. And very interesting because this kind of looks like a mushroom cap, like a golden teacher mushroom cap there. And then obviously you have the face with the sun and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13.
That's lunar. That's a lunar system. I dig it.
So I don't know. For me, the sun. But okay. So how about for me? When I first see the sun in any sort of symbolism, of course, it reminds me of the halo.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It reminds me of the sun that kings. So kings used to wear the sun on their crowns. Right.
Where is the halo from, though, Carla? It's from the mushroom, the veil.
I mean, Helios, Mithras, all these ancient gods had the sun on the back of their heads.
Right.
And
and
it became a halo in Christianity.
Yeah.
Really, it's a symbol of royalty and monarchy and nobility and like sacred blood.
Yeah.
But then it became once it became a halo, it became sort of as a sacred symbol. So in the old days, kings used to wear a sun on the back of their heads, but once it became a halo under Christianity, they wore crowns instead of they used to literally have like a halo thing on the back of their heads. Mithras is an interesting god as well.
Totally. Yes, I think that Auriga is embodying Mithras in a very fascinating way, because he's jumping over the bull. Mithra, he either avoids the bull, or sometimes in some rituals he'll get run over by the bull, depending on where the initiate is. But also Auriga, who is Hephaestus the Charioteer, he's wearing the standard red cap, which corresponds to the mushroom cults that you're getting at there, Juan.
And check this, it's got is that a swan, if I'm not mistaken? You got the sun and the moon bathing together. Mind you, this is alchemical, but then you have the swan here, the bird, and then
swan,
I saw also some other references to, so you have a peacock in this one, and then I saw some other references to a swan as well up here. So you have the swan.
Oh, yeah, there's a swan there. There's a swan there.
The peacock would go to Hera.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You have a dog, and the sun is either rising or setting in this one. So,
that's a weird one. That's an angelic swan woman. There's so much mixed symbolism in there.
And that's an alchemical little furnace that it's on top of.
Yeah. So again, it's weird because I do spend a lot of time looking at alchemical plates like this. Like, look at this. Like, what is this even supposed to? What are they doing? You know what I mean? Like,
so
that seems like they are squeezing the man's like an MRI, really, but it's for consciousness, right?
Yeah, possibly. Like they're either taking something out here. This guy's. Yeah. It reminds me of the order of the optometrist, where they would the Copio cipher, where they would do a pseudo surgery on the guy in order to initiate them, in order to illuminate. They were illuminated after the fact, after doing this ritual, this pseudo operation or something of some nature.
So Cygnus is the constellation of the Swan, and it is in one of the four royal corners of the zodiac. It's down in Aquarius. So it's probably a royal heraldry is probably incorporated in that. A lot of the minor decans of the four corners, the Taurus, the Leo, the Scorpio, and the Aquarius, they have royal heraldry tied in to what those constellations are often referred to as they have four royal stars. So they make up the four corners of a piece of paper of the official authorities of the realm that we're in.
It's interesting because now that you say that, so the swan, when Zeus is the swan, he's actually the woman is Leda, and Leda is Helen of Troy's mother.
Right.
So out of that union comes Helen of Troy and Polydeuces, but also Castor and Clytemnestra come out of that union.
Oh, cool.
So Swan, Zeus father, Leda, human, let's say queen mother, and then these four children come out. And then, of course, never mind Helen being the so-called reason why they went to the Battle of Troy and all that nonsense. Yeah.
Gabe, can we start with Zeus on your political map? start with Zeus and then go down the line.
Yes, absolutely. Right before that, can you pull up the most recent one I shot to you? Because this is one more, I think, really good ingredient to bring forward. I've been researching the lunar standstills, and there are lunar standstills they're like an eclipse, except it's like a granddaddy eclipse. Like
Okay.
we always have eclipses pretty regularly, and they're predictable, and they have been weaponized in the past. Like at the Battle of Tippecanoe, they told everybody that if you don't sign on for this big master battle for the end of days, then the sun will be blackened out. And then the sun got blackened out, and everybody had to conscript and go do the battle to please the gods again. So they, kind of like Apocalypto, where they just use the inevitable dynamics of the
Yep.
heavens for political means. And
Yeah.
so I've been researching these lunar standstills in a major way. And what I have discovered is that the two nodes, the north node and the south node, they have locations on a zodiac.
Yes.
And those locations are super important. They're like you could think of them as a psychological umbilical cord or a crossing over point where you would, and it takes 18.6 years to get from one to the other. And so all of the stress and animosity and shadow work of the collective is like an offering to when we get to the node, because huge storms and calamity are known to occur more so than usual when we get close to these lunar standstills. And so the cycles are kind of like a sigma wave, where we go lunar standstill, north node, south node, north node, south node. So we're going back and forth inevitably. But I think that sine wave is actually on a bigger sine wave. And so the last 2 years, we had more volcanoes than ever, record-breaking volcano activity. And I believe
And earthquakes too.
And you got it. And I believe, so the next lunar standstill is in 2025. And so we're rushing towards it right now, like a chariot. We're riding up to the pinnacle of that sigma sine wave. And I think that there will be many more earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, thunder, lightning. They're going to call it global warming. And just like they've done in Greek history, they're going to use it politically to be like, hey, it's these people's fault because they went on Sinai and signed the new 10 commandments. So we should go kill them because of the new 10 commandments caused global warming. Or because you didn't sign the 10 commandments, you caused global warming. So I think that we're seeing the lunar standstills being weaponized, and they're going to hold the whole world hostage and say that we have the policies that will make all this go away. If you don't join our side, then you have to die. So that's my theory, is we are going
That's
to...
pretty depressing there, Gabe.
I know. It's pretty far out, but there is precedent for this. The battle over the city of Athens was, I think that's something everybody should go look into. I just learned about it today, and it blew my mind wide open because Neptune had come and he had laid claim to that territory, and they had a contract with one god of the sea. And then Athena comes along and she has all this knowledge and wisdom to offer. And so she starts to make a claim on the territory, and all the ladies are finding, fulfillment in a feminine goddess. And so they start to build up the Athenian influence on the culture. And then a huge calamity strikes. And they end up blaming the ladies. And they say, see, it's because we let you guys have a goddess in the temple. And they took away their right to vote. And the women lost their right to vote. And then the whole city goes through, all this torment. But it's just natural disaster. It's going to happen. And then they end up blaming one person or the other, male or female, black or white, Jewish, not Jewish.
Athena wins that. So Athena challenges Poseidon, right?
Yeah.
And she wins.
Ultimately,
she wins. But the irony, though, is that Athena doesn't do anything for women. I would not consider her a woman's goddess because she's always taken the side of men. Like in Aeschylus's play, she says, I have no mother, which is not true. She has a mother, Metis, that Zeus swallows.
Right.
And then she is born out of his head, right? When
Yeah.
Hephaestus cracks his head open. And
Yeah.
so she says, I have no mother and I have no loyalty to women. So I always find her a bit of a misogynist in a way. She's always mad at women. She punishes them all the time. Medusa, Arachne, a ton of the others.
Yeah.
Cassandra, she never shows up for Cassandra while she's being dragged away. All these kinds of things. So Athena's kind of, I don't want to say that she's not nice, but she's originally she was a goddess of wisdom, yes, and perhaps in favor of women. But I think once she became the symbol of Athens, or the patron of Athens, she becomes very masculinized. I don't know if that's the right word, but
I think that.
she's no longer interested in women. And Orestes, when he's running away because he killed his mother, Clytemnestra, daughter of Swan and Leda.
Okay.
He runs and hides from the Furies, and he appeals to Athena to forgive him of the the family blood sin or taint. And she plays judge and jury there. That's why I always think of her as Liberty, because she plays judge and jury. And she says, "Oh yeah, I forgive you. You're forgiven. Your sin is forgiven, because it's actually worse to kill your father, which is what Clytemnestra did to Agamemnon, than for a son to kill his mother." So anyway, she basically says men can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Their sins are not as bad as the women's sins. Yeah.
Well, I think
she sides with him. She doesn't side with women.
Yeah. I think you're going to like her spot on the Enneagram. She's a perfectionist.
Yeah, that would fit.
Yep. And perfectionists get a lot of animosity from all the other stations in the Enneagram. So her personality is her shadow. The perfectionist shadow is wrath, which I think Aries is like her wrathful shadow side, her counterpart. But
you're gonna love. I don't know if you listened to my one on Medusa, where Medusa and Athena are sort of a dual divinity.
Right.
Athena is the raging, where Medusa is the raging shadow, and Athena is the rational.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that Athena wears Medusa on her chest, almost
Right.
like you're wearing your shadow self,
owning it
to others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could be here for a few hours, Gabe.
Oh man, totally. Can you bring that last one back up? I just, so the word node is, it's deeply encoded in so many things. But so this is up top. You have a standard image of the seraphim, and I believe that the seraphim is actually encoding the dynamics of the lunar standstill cycle. And so this is also how a standard eclipse works as well. It's these 2 points on the zodiac where once we get to the perfect alignment, the shadows just happen to cast either down on Earth or up onto the moon or occults the sun. So
it would make sense too, Gabe, because all eyes are on these. Well, it's not an eclipse. Is it an eclipse? Because all eyes are always on eclipses, either lunar or solar.
Right.
And it's covered in eyes.
And you have to be careful, because if you stare at it, you'll go blind. So it has this, it's a forbidden fruit. You can't partake of it, or else you'll be punished. So the term nodes is it's everywhere I look now. And it's really hard to stay linear here, but we even have lymph nodes in the human anatomy. And so what is really fascinating is we actually have an upper lymphatic system and a lower lymphatic system. They don't connect in the middle. So our lymph system has like a Artemis and Apollo, the two archerers, correspondent with each other. One with the golden bow, one with the silver bow. So I see the bows as having strong correspondence with the symbols for the nodes, because they look like a drawn bow. They're also the symbol on the back of a cobra. A king cobra has this,
that's right,
this loop-de-loop symbol. Mm-hmm. And now this is really fun, because Hephaestus Auriga, the charioteer, he is stationed in the part of the zodiac where the north node resides. And he has two legs that are serpent-like legs. Well, in Greek culture, they actually called the node, one of the nodes was the head, and the other node was called the tail.
Mm.
And so for him to have legs of a serpent means that he is, and that is the spot in the sky where these lunar standstill cycles reside, where they are found.
Also, the giants had legs just like that. Greek giants
Nice.
also had legs like that.
That's great. And they would shake the earth.
Yeah, that's
So,
interesting.
so as these nodes become, as we approach the node, the earth will shake more. We will have more earthquakes, more volcanoes, more storms, and what they're going to call global warming. But it's just a natural inevitability of the cycle as we get closer and closer, building up to these nodes.
Interestingly, Neptune is the one that in Greek is called the earth shaker.
Yes. I'm thinking he's the south node. I think he's down in the near Sagittarius. I think he's much like it's between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's Ophiuchus. And I think that he gets that underworld credit for the south node. And then up above at the north node is the more golden, the other charioteer that shakes the earth would be in the summer season. So one other really fascinating thing is I learned that the word firearms is an anagram for seraphim.
Why is that, Gabe?
A seraphim is one of the types of angels.
Yeah.
And it's described as a craft flying through the air, and people have, when they see them, it's basically early UFO accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And they would call them a seraphim. But it's fascinating to me that firearms is an anagram for seraphim, because they use the term firearms in propaganda to extract our fear, for us to make an offering of, oh no, not firearms again. And so I always tell people, you need to write up your affidavit that says that I do not have any firearms. I never have. I have arms. I have bare arms. Because the word firearms is a captured term. It's trademarked. And if you consent to having your weapons called firearms, then it belongs to them because they own that term. We have bare arms. You've never had firearms. You're playing their game. You got to control the language. So
you think, Gabe, that fear, which is clearly something that's been harvested,
yes,
is an offering,
yes,
to these Greek gods in the modern world?
I do. And each god has a different flavor of offering.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we get into that?
yeah, let's do it. Let's see. I'll send this one first.
Because I have the 12 Olympians pulled up, which obviously another thing that this can be interpreted as is the 12 astrological signs as well, which we know the elites are very fond of. J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Flagler, all those guys who are very fond of astrology because they think, what's the quote, right? Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do.
You got it. So
I do think that that's because astrology is a more, I don't know if this is nice to say, but I feel like it's a more authentic tradition. As I kind of feel that the ancient gods are a more authentic tradition. But that's my historian perspective, because I would prefer to live in a time that predates some of the monotheistic traditions of the last 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a little irked that if what you're saying is true, they've manipulated things that are fantastically magical.
Let the anger out, Carla. Let it out.
Into something that is, like I said, depraved or perverse.
Totally.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's their goal, though. The inversion of that's what the black mass is. It's the inversion of a regular Eucharist, and I mean, use your imagination, the inversion of it, and that's what they've done for forever. You know, they take it and they invert it and they pervert it,
Right.
and they go from there. It's transgression. You know what I mean? Like you can be so do what thou will. You can be so bad no matter what you do, but eventually you're still going to reach that same divinity regardless of what you've done. So,
and I'm with you, Carla. I'm kind of pissed too. These things should be natural. They should be autonomous to the individual, and it should be a votive offering. You should want to bring your intentions forward as an offering independent of any control system. I agree. I think it's quite nefarious, but I think we can crack the code. Okay. And I think we can set all these gods free and ourselves as a beautiful result. So Juan, what you were saying about the 12 stations of the zodiac, that's something that is really important as well. Hercules has the 12 endeavors that he has to go through. Mm-hmm. Well, I actually listened to those 12 endeavors this morning in preparation, and I believe that the cycle of the 12 of the cycle of the stations of the heavens actually are complete when he gets to his 9th endeavor. And the remaining 3 endeavors have been added on culturally. They're excessive. He's actually completed a whole circle around the sky upon the 9th endeavor. And this is because, I believe, the old system of keeping track of time was a 9-month calendar. It was not. It was totally a different layout from what we conceive of today. And so he goes through his endeavors. He starts with the lion, and then he ends off, I forget what number 9 is, but the 9th one is in Gemini, which brings him to full completion there. And then the remaining 3, I think there's a mystery with the extra 3 that have been added on. And I haven't sussed that out yet, but but by the end of that one, you're going to love this because he becomes the Full Metal Alchemist.
Hey.
Yeah,
so
buddy.
And another thing, Hercules is also a 10-month baby. So, because that's also because, and the whole 9 symbolism, back to Pythagoreanism, is it's the seminal number. So it's the sperm. It's the 9 months out of the year. Man is 9/12 of a circle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's that number that falls short. It's almost there, but then not quite. It's the right before the 10, which is holy to the Pythagoreans. So it's interesting that it's 9 and he was a 10-month baby, which that's also, I guess some people are born at the 10th month and they get more powers. I'm not 100% on that, but I've heard it before.
Carla, have you ever heard that in Greek isopsophy or gematria, that they used to, the more powerful words would have a collective sum that added up to a 9? Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't heard of that, but I have heard of this concept of adding of the power of words and the words having mathematical power. Yes, but not these words. But not which words. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just looked up Hercules' 9th labor is Hippolyta's belt.
Okay.
The belt of Hippolyte, which is the or Hippolyte, whatever, which is the Amazon.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's his 9th labor.
That's interesting. That actually kind of makes me think that puts it in Orion, because Orion has the belt, which is actually back set to Taurus again. Maybe there's 3 extra seated throughout the progression, because that would bring number 10 would be to Gemini, 11 would be to Cancer, and then 12 would land back on Leo.
I haven't pulled up here the labors. Is it 12?
There's 9 there, so that's Hippolyta.
Interesting.
And then the cattle, those are the last 3.
The cattle?
Cerberus is the last one.
Okay, that's okay. So that's the Canis Major and Minor are minor deacons of Gemini.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I might have to do a whole show on this because I think there's some that might have to get shaken out, and then those remaining three probably have a lot of, maybe the story of bringing in the Christian calendar, because I feel that what we see is a culture that was adhering to a 9-month calendar, and we're looking at it through a 12-month calendar lens.
But do we have any evidence that the Greeks were actually using a 9-month calendar? Because I'm not sure that we do, Gabe.
I wonder because it's called the Fasti calendar.
Yeah.
And it does divide 360 days into a whole nother construct of format. It's like 8-day weeks with 5-week-long months. And instead of naming the days after gods or deities, they actually named them alphabetically. The days of the week were A through H. And then, so the whole format of it. But what's kind of neat is that with a 40-day month instead, now we can see why 40 days and 40 nights were so important in biblical lore, is because they were actually adhering to an old form of timekeeping. And a 40-day span is actually a Venetian retrograde. I think that's its most sacred harmonic significance, is 40 days is veneration. It's a rational proportion of Venus when she does her little backwards dance.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm not an expert in calendars.
Mm-hmm.
That 40 day and 40 nights makes sense in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that the Greeks used it. I'd have to do some research on that. We'd have to do some research on that and see.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, so I know that they have different festivals and month-long festivals, and of course different festivals from different gods that last sometimes a month. But an exact sort of date calendar, I'd have to do some research before I really say, oh yeah, this is the way it was.
So according to We Keep Idea, there was a whole bunch of different calendars by region, and I looked through all this, and it's our regular 12 months, it looks like. But then obviously they had a festival calendar, civil calendar. They had a whole bunch of different types. But it says the Greeks, as early as the time of Homer, appear to have been familiar with division of the year into 12 lunar months, but no intercalary month, embolimos, or day in is then mentioned with 12 months of 354 days. So again, according to this, they had a regular-ish calendar that we have today, but
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I had it pulled up. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the 9-month calendar was agricultural or Egyptian, relating to when Typhon came and the gods had to go and hide in Egypt, and they put on masks, and there were 9 of them hiding. And so I think of it as almost maybe when, like, one theory I've always had is like Typhon represents monotheism. And monotheism is coming with, like, the 19th dynastic Egypt, and Akhenaten is going to like lay waste to the old animal worship in the old system, and he's going to do a grand reset. And so Typhon represents this regression of pantheism to lay low and hide out, and even instill the wisdom into animals, something immortal that'll last and can be unpacked later.
It's a familiar.
That the Egyptians.
Yeah.
So wait, that story would be something the Greeks would tell, or the Egyptians? I'm not sure the Egyptians were that interested in Greek mythology.
Well, I agree. I think that it's the agricultural class of Egypt. So, like, the higher courts, they're burning and pillaging the pantheistic system, but the agriculturalists are like, yo, I'm not going into town anytime soon, because the monotheism culture cleansing is raging in the cities. So let's just lay low until everything's cool again, and then we can maybe bring these stories back to life and unpack them after this rampage of monotheism.
It's weird because here I have early Roman calendars, which the Romans borrowed parts of the earliest known calendar from the Greeks. The calendar consisted of 10 months in a year of 304 days. So the Romans seem to have ignored the remaining 61 days, which fell in the middle of winter. The 10 months were named Martius, Aprilis, Maius, Junius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, and December.
Oh, that's so confusing.
That is. So
and then, of course, Julius and Augustus come later.
Yeah.
So I think for some of that, you need like a chronological timeline to kind of see how that shifts. Because then the Romans themselves shift it again and rename stuff as well.
Totally.
Yeah, that would be a lot of work too, Gabe, because that's...
It would.
Yeah.
I got a buddy who's really into calendars, so maybe he and I will put our heads together one of these days on that. Because
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that. Yeah.
So to the Enneagram here, it's kind of a long story to tell how I came to these stations, but I wanted to run them by you, Carla, and see how they resonated with you.
Okay.
In the story of Typhon, I have Zeus there as the number 7. He's got the ram horns on his head there.
Yeah.
And in the story of Typhon, I think he ends up removing himself from that enthusiast, epicureal gluttony position because he's challenged by a number 8, a challenger, which it's so hard to stay chronological. So he was born out of Zeus, was his father, was the one who was in his way, and he needed to conquer Zeus at first. He had to conquer Kronos to become Zeus,
right,
to gain his position. So I have an image of Kronos in place here, just kind of showing that Kronos was the challenger of the time, and he had to conquer him to become. He had to use craftiness and to defeat Kronos. Okay. So Kronos is kind of in that challenger leader position at first, but as the stories unfold, depending on what story you're in, they will switch roles. But the cool thing about them moving through their roles and their dynamics is that it follows the personality tendencies of the Enneagram. They don't just go to any position. He literally follows from the 7 position. He goes across, and he has to become a 1 when he gets challenged by Typhon. So he becomes the leader role. He becomes a perfectionist. He has to engage his wrathfulness to do battle. And what is really fascinating about Zeus having that direct crossover line to the station of the 1 is that the mathematical meaning of 1 divided by 7 brings forward this amazing truth. And that truth is the 7 stations. It's called a heptad. And if you don't include the triangle, you'll get this number. You get 0 point, and you can watch it go down. You start with a 1, drops down to the 4, and then the 2, and then it goes across to the 8, drops down to a 5, and then goes to a 7, and then goes back to the 1. So the significance of the letter Q, 17, encodes mathematically 1 divided by 7, which then unpacks into 0.142857142857142857 forever. It goes on and on forever. And okay. So the significance of that dynamic of going from a 7 and a 1 and their relationship to each other is actually unpacks to reveal the Enneagram, because when you repeat those numbers over and over, eventually you're going to see that there's never a 3, a 6, or a 9. So the 369 that was never repeated in the 1 divided by 7 is it's occulted or hidden, removed from the perpetual sequence of this Enneagram system.
Okay.
And so I just think that's really beautiful. That's one of my first realizations, is that he didn't just move to any personality station. He had to move into that wrathful role, and he had to become like Ares. Probably I think Ares isn't in the story of Typhon.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember who's the Zeus, Poseidon. Yeah, I can't remember all of them, but no, I don't think Ares is in there.
So he comes back down to the 7 in times of peace, where he can go get his freak on and be, the Zeus we all know and love, the enthusiast with this gluttonous shadow. So the red print on all these stations, I added the red print, and that is the shadow aspect of each of these personality types. And I believe that, I'm coming to believe that these Greek personas of the human psyche, the collective human psyche, that they consider that shadow aspect almost like an offering. So, if you are dealing with glutton as a problem in your life, then you don't want to go talk to Hera about it. You wouldn't want to go talk to Aphrodite about your glutton. It would be appropriate to take your issues of glutton specifically to a temple of Zeus, and maybe have some sort of sacred exchange with the spirit of that aspect of the human personality.
It's their version of an Enneagram by worshiping these different entities, but where do all the extracurricular ones stand? And why would they add? Because they have a bunch. I mean, there's 12.
You're totally right. I think the other ones fit in here as well. I think there might be a secondary to Zeus. There's probably another enthusiast, but he's not as principal as Zeus is. So there are examples here. Down on the achiever with number 3, I have Dionysus as an achiever. Now, there's something that's not indicated here. I gotta maybe make this clear about the Enneagram, something that's really important. It has 3 segments. It's divided into feel, think, and act.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Can you really quick break down for those that don't know what the Enneagram is, like a layman terms, quick overview, since we're going to be referencing it, because I had never heard about it until we did that one episode forever ago.
Yeah.
And apparently it's a real thing, but it's also this sacred geometry. And,
it is. It's fascinating, and its origin is kind of obscured in mystery as well. They track it back to these really remote Sufis, and Gurdjieff was one of the people who helped bring it forward. He spent time in St. Petersburg, so the Enneagram has collected meaning over time, but I believe it had the potential all along to be used as a personality matrix to potentially predict people's decision making in a fascinating way. Considering if you use a carrot or a stick, the personality will either move one direction or the other, and it has a lot of predictive value in that. So, if you wanted, you can take tests on the Enneagram. I don't recommend that you do them online because you're probably getting data mined. We've probably already been data mined. I think our Enneagram score is already our social credit score. I think it's been weaponized and used in marketing against us, not fully disclosed, but used against us. But one good way to break it down is that some people, their principal reaction to a situation is either to feel first, to think first, or to act first.
Okay.
And so if you're a feel first, you are more likely to fall into a 2, 3, or a 4, a helper, an achiever, or an individual. And then if you're a think first kind of person, you will have a tendency to land as a thinker, a loyalist, or an enthusiast, a 5, 6, or a 7. But if you're impulsive or rash or not into feeling or thinking too long, and you don't want to get stuck in analysis paralysis, then you will likely score as a 8, 9, or a 1. That is the body or the instinct or the act grouping of the matrix here.
Okay.
And in different situations, you very likely will fall in a whole nother personality type. Like when you're around your parents, you're not going to have the same tendencies as when you're with your lover, you know?
Okay.
So different situations will put you will help you embody a different proclivity behaviorally. And there are many synonyms for each station. Like I only have 1 or 2 words to describe each station, but they have lots of synonyms as well that kind of broaden it into a larger umbrella of behavioral patterning.
And so, what is the pattern? Let's say you pick a number, whatever number it is. Is there a specific pattern that can be predicted?
Yes.
Like to which number you go next, and then to which number you go next. That's what you're saying.
Yes, it's really remarkable, and there is a lot of research and like proving it out. You have to basically
It's a
prove
talisman.
it nine times. Yes.
So they pinpoint one of these archetypes, right? One of these gods. They put them out there, and they're able to already tell which move is next. So it's like a real life game of chess, a sort of talisman, some magical operation, and then throw in the lunar cycles into all this. And bada bing, bada boom, you have a whole ceremony ritual, and they're able to mine your energy or whatever it is. For what ends, Gabe? Where are they taking all this information? Where are they inputting it? Where's the homunculus at? Where are they making it?
Well, if anybody wants to look into it, it's called the integrating and disintegrating Enneagram theory, or even easier way to find it is the 2-arrow theory. The 2-arrow theory, it indicates that if you, like we were talking about the relationship of the 7 to the 1, and then it drops down to the 4. So 7, 1, and 4 have the vector on the 1, right? And so if you're a 1 and you're in a stressed out situation, you will actually lean into a enthusiast. You'll look for an enthusiast in your life to help you solve the stress, and you'll be repulsed by an individual. If an individual comes with individual mentality and behavior, you're going to be like, that's the last thing I need right now. But if you're in a situation that things are going well, so this is the carrot versus the stick. This is the hook and the flare that the pharaoh holds. So if things are going well and you're in an enticing situation, you'll actually be repelled by the enthusiast and drawn into the individual. You'll look to them for guidance. Or you might make the decision, a better decision for yourself that is drawn towards the tendencies of an individual. It is so dynamic. It is fascinating. And Gurdjieff, the guy who brought this forward, he says it's very important that you don't get stuck, that you don't believe that you are stuck in any of these corners. The Enneagram has to stay alive. It has to stay alive. And that means that
it's like a mandala, like it takes your don't get stuck. He says that.
He says it has to stay moving. It has to stay dynamic. Otherwise, people will believe that, like, oh, I'm always a 1, and I'll use the fact that I'm a 1 as an excuse not to move towards the 4, or as an excuse to vilify 7s, and you'll just get stuck in that dynamic. But you have to be willing to shift, and you have to be brave and move into an integrating way of life. And it could potentially, I think of this as the 3 moire, the 3 fates. And these are the chords and the strings that are the tune, and the tune that the string makes is either pleasing to your ear and will pull you into a beneficial decision, or it's discordant and will lead you to repel you to move away from a beneficial decision.
So, because what I'm hearing here, because this says it all right here, is a model of the human psyche. So they've literally are able to, like I said, determine your next outcome, which we know that that's what AI is right now. That's
Yeah.
maybe the modern day Enneagram, where we don't even need to take the test. The reason that you see certain ads at a certain point in time is because the AI has already predicted what you're going to think of in the long run. So that it is a model of the human psyche, which is principally understood and taught as the topology of 9 interconnected personality types. Although the origins and history of many of the ideas and theories associated with the Enneagram of personality are a matter of dispute, contemporary Enneagram theories are principally derived from the teachings of the Bolivian psycho-spiritual teacher Oscar Ichazo from 1950s and the Chilean psychiatrist Claudio Naranjo from the 1970s. Naranjo's theories were also influenced by some earlier teachings about personality by George, whatever his last name is, and the fourth way. Where does Jung and all these guys fall in with this? Because this is really interesting. Because essentially, it's a way of being again predicting. And I thought that I've been led to believe that astrology was that, where it was again a map of kind of sort of the same thing, the psyche, I guess you could say, because it relates all your, every astrological sign has its own attributes. So I'd be interested to see where Jung and maybe Freud or somebody falls. Maybe not Freud, but Jung definitely, where they fall into this.
Well, part of what brought me to even conceiving of doing this, like doing a psych profile on the Greek gods, it's like really kind of came out of nowhere.
Because the word comes from Greek too, right? It's meaning 9.
Yes, Ennea means the 9, yeah. So essentially, Carl Jung was brought in by Alan Dulles. Before it was called the CIA, it was the OSS back then. And Alan Dulles asked Carl Jung to do a psychological analysis of the Nazi regime and the guys at the top who were calling the shots. And he was using Jung as a psych profiler so that they could predict their decisions. And when he did that, he gave Carl Jung the agent number 488. And so Agent 488 is Carl Jung's spy name. And I just think it's really fascinating that they were using a systematized means of predicting other people's decisions that long ago. But Carl Jung's system was more complicated than this. And I think he might have diversified something like this into something a little more nuanced and more detailed. He has a 16 stationed circle with different personalities that are similar but different. It is much more complex, the one that Carl Jung uses. And today, when you go to get a job and fill out an application, they're actually using Carl Jung's early work that has been embellished on in modern day context to test how honest you are. And so the exam that you take to get a job, the honesty test, that's very much what Carl Jung was giving to Alan Dulles when he did a psych
an honesty test for a job.
Look at what episode I dropped today too. MK Ultra. And we got into that about Carl Jung and his play. I didn't know he was involved in the CIA until we did this episode, and that's literally the episode I dropped today. So
nice.
We don't take an honesty test in Canada.
Oh, that's good.
I've never heard of an honesty test before.
That's what they called it when I was younger. Today, I think they probably call it something else. I mean, it's I think TRAC, TRAC. It's in my phone, which I would have to cut out to use it. But I think it's TRAC or TRA. Yeah, TRAC. And is the acronym, which is funny because it's tracking your tendencies and your likelihood to make certain decisions.
So track testing is for athletic competition. So I don't know if it's that.
Oh, that's not it. Let me see. I don't have it on my computer. It's in my phone. The Carl Jung based. It has introvert and extrovert. It tests if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and then based on that, it like goes to the next
Topology test. It says Young topology test, personality test based on Young and Briggs Myers topology.
That's the one. Thank you.
I've taken those personality tests before, but I mean, they're not great.
Yeah, mine says I'm a piece of shit. So
Yeah, I'm not a fan of them either. I suspect that Carl Jung had to diversify or complicate something so that he could actually do more work, have a longer career path. I think this is like a very simplified system of predictive personality matrix, and the one that Carl Jung has seems to be really like overcomplicated, I think.
I have to disagree with this system because I feel that even human nature, how are you able to put a like conscious, like if you think about consciousness, it is everything. How are you able? I feel like they're trying to put a label on that in some which way, which I don't think is possible. And to say that somebody can, I don't know, maybe that's the whole thing with MK Ultra. Maybe that's how they were able to achieve it, through systems like this. You know what I'm saying? Like get into the psyche of the person and learn the tools in order to be able to break a person down. And it just reminds me of the show Love is Blind. They just had like this reunion on Netflix, and they were using like gaslighting on this guy the whole entire reunion, and it turned out that the chick was a piece of shit at the end of it. But the entire hour long thing, they were all just on top of this guy until he broke down at the very end. You could tell that he was questioning his own sanity towards the very end of it. So they drove him to the brink of questioning your own sanity. Like, oh, you called me fat, or it was like something dumb. Like, oh, you called me fat. You told me not to eat this, XYZ. And the guy's like, I literally don't remember that happening. And towards the end, he was like, hey, I'm so sorry for all the things I did. And like, just really, it was like almost like a humiliation ritual in front of millions and millions of people that this poor guy had to undergo. And at the end, you could literally tell he was crying. He was really broken at the end of it all. And I don't know, again, they put this out there for the world to see, and the world is a stage. So
I don't think that psychology did us any favors. Certainly psychology has taught us and taught them, whoever they are,
the lizards.
To control. I mean, I don't think that it's that hard to control humans. We are in a way predictable, and yet also very unpredictable. So
that's what I'm saying. Like,
right? There's this. I guess on average, let's say we're predictable, with like if the parameters are right, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. If they control the environment,
right?
Ways, yeah.
Well, that's where the seraphim comes in, where they know at these certain nodes. Because check it out, you were mentioning about the unpredictability and the strengths of all these storms. Well, we just had Hurricane Nicole, and I promise you that I had zero idea about the hurricane coming to hit Florida until a day before. And the reason I found out was because I went on Facebook and I saw somebody posting like, oh, careful with this system. And usually I look at the date and I go, that was 14 hours ago. That's weird. So then I open up my NHC website, and there was a hurricane right outside of, and everybody that I asked, my neighbors, my family, everybody, my wife was like, where did that even come from? And I was like, I do not even know where it came out. It literally manifested, obviously not from nothing, but it felt like that for us, at least for my family and my neighbors who were like, what does I called somebody else, like, yo, you know, there's a hurricane coming? They're like, what? I was like, yeah, check the news, it's coming. And it's like that sort of thing where, how you were saying it's around these times we had the elections coming up right before right before the hurricane hit. So does that play a role into I think it all goes back to that loosh, that energy, the way that you're able, because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. So take the energy that's already there, transform it, and, you know, put some intent behind it. Boom, you got a ceremonial setting. Every year, the elections are at the same time every single year. They already know what's up, so it's that energy gets pushed out into the ether and it comes back that same time of year. Boom. And you just, you know what I mean?
So okay, if that's the case, I guess my question is, what tools are they using? Or are you just saying that energy, whatever it is, if it's fear or if it's uncertainty, whatever, it's floating in the air and that's the offering? Or are you saying that there are tools that then harvest that energy and offer it to something else?
Yeah.
They're able to funnel that energy.
Yes, and I think that I'll give you an example of a ritual that I'm pretty sure you will agree is an embodiment of Hephaestus and the mythology of Hephaestus. It just happened on the world stage, and everybody consumed it, but nobody had the context to realize that this was like a theatrical reenactment of the Hephaestus storyline. And it's being used in a nefarious way because I love Hephaestus. I love the stories. I love these characters, but they're putting people that I'm not so inclined to admire in the role of these mythological characters. Can you bring that most recent one up, Juan, that I shot you? And this breaks my heart, but it will make sense because you know Hephaestus' story and you know it well, and you'll see the ingredients all line up in a way that is undeniable. I think once the ingredients come together theatrically.
And to add some context to what Carla was asking, the technology I believe that they use, if you look at any talismanic magic grimoire, that's the whole premise behind the charging of the talisman, the astrological alignment, and then add extracurricular things in there, and boom, you have a charged talisman. Maybe that chair that Washington was sitting on that one day was charged with, and it's immortalized now. It's immortalized for forever. It's got gold. Did it have gold on it? I mean, if it's got gold on it, that's alchemical. It's all, I believe, and I say this all the time. I'm sure people are tired of hearing it, but I relate everything back to an alchemical process. I believe that modern day science is just alchemy rebranded. They just changed, quantum funneling and tunneling and all this stuff. They just changed the name of it. And it's the spooky action at a distance that we're really focusing on here. But yeah, I think that it's a lost tech, Carla, I believe, right, when it comes to the occult. And I believe they charge talismans and they do weird, freaky stuff with them too.
Okay.
So this one, it's a little blurry, but this is a reenactment of Hephaestus trapping Hera in her throne, in the throne that he crafted for her.
Mm.
And
although they super glue themselves.
Yes, they did. Well, allegedly, I don't even see any super glue. They like just kind of standing there with their hands held.
Right. Maybe that's just a word, like a metaphor.
Right.
Yeah.
So the headline has an acronym embedded in the headline: ERASTICC. Era stick.
Yeah.
And they are sticking themselves to this throne, to the grand chair. It's actually the chariot that never moves. This is where the gears of the system turn.
Shit.
So they are in a throne that doesn't go anywhere.
I like where this is going.
And they're flipping the narrative such that the children are now deriding the adults and asking them, how the fuck did we get in this situation? What were you thinking when you put us in this situation? That is psychologically what happens when Hephaestus traps Hera. When Hera sticks to the throne, he then begins to interrogate her to find out his origin story.
True. I mean, that's fascinating. Although, okay, I agree with what you're saying. The parallels are very close. But do you think that these ladies, these women, knew that story? Like, do you think this is purposeful?
No, I don't think children can sneak into a government building and put on a huge staged event. This is all public PR campaign for the movement. We weren't even it's like in Washington, they're still putting people on trial for breaking into government buildings and calling them domestic terrorists. But meanwhile, out here at the Chariot of the World in England, the actual throne where the real gears are turning, these kids were able to sneak in and they're not even getting removed.
Home of the lizard people. They were just in the basement, bro. That's what happened. The children were in the basement already, so they just made their way up and they took a quick picture.
So I don't think these kids have the sophistication to realize the complexity of the spell or the spellcraft that is in play here. I think all these children have parents somewhere, and somebody removed that we'll never see or know the name of has probably organized this to have all the ingredients of the Hephaestus and the dynamic of Hera.
And what did they do with that? I guess that's my question. Okay, let's say that's the case.
Uh-huh.
So, like, what are they harvesting here? What are they?
Well, for one, they're utilizing children, the innocent children who should not be. You can't reproach somebody else's child. You can't tell somebody else's child what is right or wrong. So the children in themselves are like a human shield. You can't attack the child because they're children. Of course they're misled. But somehow they are granted access to the eyes of the world to scold and wag their finger at us. It's incredibly nefarious, in my opinion, to use children and weaponize them on the global stage. It's kind of the same thing as using an elderly person, somebody who can barely walk, a toddling, dawdling Joe Biden. I feel horrible criticizing him because he's just a poor old dude. You know what I mean? It really pulls on your heartstrings in a fascinating way. And so now here's where a very interesting term comes to light. So Auriga, the charioteer, is in the station of Taurus, the bull. And so these triggers are a chair at a bull cause. It's a charitable cause. And it's pulling on our heartstrings, I think, in a very unfair way. But it's the heartstrings of the collective. And when you get the heartstrings of enough people tuned to just the right note, then you can steer them like a grand chariot, like you have tethers on all of their hearts. And you can cause people to make decisions by magnifying the spell times everybody watching.
Okay. So what you're saying then is that these young children tying themselves to this chair elicit some type of empathy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That empathy then is what's being harvested.
That's where so this is for climate change, right? What is this for?
Right.
So that's where the 10 Commandments come in, because they're the 10 principles for climate repentance. So that's where they come in, because again, they're trying to push this. And I saw this video today where Biden was talking about, like, hey, you and I both know there's no climate change. Like, he goes out, a Freudian slip, right? He goes out, you and I both know there's no climate change, but it goes back to this whole thing where they're steering the energy some which way in order to, right, the puppet master to put stuff like this. We are stewards of this world. Creation manifests destiny. Everything in life is interconnected. Do no harm. Look after tomorrow. Rise above ego for our world. Change our inner climate. Repent and return. Every action matters. Use mind. Open heart. That sounds kind of
I mean, some of those
thelemic to me.
Some of them are not terrible. I don't know about this repent and return, but okay.
Kind of weird, right?
That was a weird one. Steward of the world, okay. Creation, manifest destiny. That's
divinity.
Yeah, that's manifest divinity. That's a bit too Christian for me, but okay. Everything in life is interconnected. That's pretty easy. Do no harm. Look after tomorrow. Rise above ego for our world. Again, that's a very Christian value.
And one other point is that our children will attach to this movement and then be infused with the idea of blame. BLM. BLM is blame. And they will blame their elders for the situation that they're convinced is like, I mean, people really don't, they think that the trees are going to be on fire in 10 years. You know what I mean? They really think that the world is burning when it's fucking, I had a great harvest this year. My plants are loving it. Granted, there are more earthquakes and volcanoes.
There
but,
are, and there's a lot more flooding. And
yeah.
like in Canada, up until yesterday or the day before, we were having like 20-degree weather, which is unnatural for us.
Right.
There are definitely shifts in the environment.
Right. And everybody wants to BLM somebody for it. And, you know, a really interesting statistic I heard is that a single volcano can put out more carbon emissions than all humans on Earth in a single volcano, than all humans in a year. One volcano puts out more than all of us in a year. So our contribution is diminished by that mathematical equation in a fascinating way. So this is kind of a really fascinating revelation for me here is.
Wait, can we finish the chariot one? Because I really liked where that was going. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I'm
torn, guys. I'm torn.
Carla right now is what everybody's asking themselves in their heads right now. Like, what is the point? Like, to what ends? You know, to what means is all this for? And I'm trying to paint a better picture for those because, again, not everybody's in the know, if you know what I mean.
Well,
you know,
yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is they have circumvented the role of the parent. And now the next generation is going to look for daddy government to be the solution. And the parent has been completely removed from even knowing what right and wrong is. And
I do agree with that to some degree, especially with school, indoctrination.
Yes.
But that's something that's been going on for some time. Parents are losing more and more power, let's say, or control of their children because now you have to put them in this 8-hour school system, and there's all that stuff.
Yeah, it's been a gnarly ride, to say the least. You know, my kid, she thinks racism is a skin color. You know, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And then you throw in 5 years of the term toxic masculinity with fucking Donald Trump at the throne. And now we're all wearing masks because we're afraid of toxins. So who subconsciously is receiving the blame for all the toxicity in the air that we're all hiding from in these masks? And by the way, masks are also theatrical masks. They are eclipse magic. You get there's a frowny and a smiley face. Well, eclipses either make a frowny pathway or they make a smiley pathway as they express on the earth. And by putting a mask over your face, that's eclipsing your face. So you are interfacing. I'm getting ahead of myself. The word persona in law, legally, the word person is a mask. It's an Etruscan word and it means mask. And so your fictional ID that you identify with, that you think that is you because you've confused the subject for the object or the object for the subject, that is your persona. And it allows you, like a mask, it allows you to interface with the fictional world. And so this is part of the revelation of why sovereignty is shaking the foundation of the earth on a real level, because people are realizing, wait a second, that's not my ID. That doesn't even belong to me. Your social security card, it says on the card, this belongs to the state. And if you find it and it doesn't belong to you, please return it. So why are you keeping your social security card?
America,
what's that?
Only in America.
Right. It's crazy how psychological it all is.
The American dream, because you got to be asleep to believe it.
I mean, we don't have a social security card. We have like a social, what's it called now? Yeah, social insurance number.
Oh,
same shit, different
but
wording.
It doesn't say anything about belonging to the state on the card.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just your name and the card, and now they don't even give you a card anymore. You have to realize it, which is weird.
It's going to get harder and harder to prove these facts because they are eroding the revelation that we came across in our lifetime. The kids yet to come, they're going to have a hard time even believing a lot of these truths that we've discovered in the path to sovereignty. So the the Charioteer is it definitely has the aspect of Hera locked in her chair, because in most tarot cards you will notice that the wheels don't really seem to be going anywhere. It will have wheels, but the base of the chariot is a block or a cube, and so it has the appearance of functionality, but with a little bit of closer inspection, you'll actually find out that most Charioteer cards are just designed to sit in place and give the illusion of movement. And so I find that to encode the solstice, where the sun does not move for 3 days, it stays in place for 3 days. But I also think on an even deeper level, it is encoding the idea of the lunar standstill, a prolonged eclipse period, where the moon and the sun come together, and it lasts for, I forget how long. I want to say 3 hours, but it's a prolonged eclipse period. So I just thought I would share that the Charioteer seems to be like Hera in her throne, locked in place and not really going anywhere.
Do you think that that's purpose? So you think it's purposeful and not just the fact that they couldn't draw a wheel in movement?
Yeah, it seems to be consistent. Like even in the older tarot decks, it's almost like you know that what's his name? He in the movie Big, Tom Hanks.
Some don't even have wheels.
Right. Tom Hanks, he makes a wish to the wizard machine.
Yeah.
And I think its name is like Zordon. Zardon.
Yeah.
And so that is encoding the Charioteer, because he's got an upper torso, but the base doesn't move.
So some don't even have wheels; they're just stationary. Like this one doesn't even have wheels. This is the Rider White, no?
Yeah.
And then this is an earlier one. It's got the wheels sideways. I've never seen a chariot with wheels sideways, and this is the one that's like mostly that I've seen that's kind of facing forward. But again, I really love the Chariot card. It's my favorite card because of the whole Full Metal Alchemist, and I do think that he is birthing reality into existence, and that's what they're invoking by being at the forefront of, again, the world. It goes back to the whole world. The world's a stage mentality, and Shakespeare, if he even existed, was the one that said that. So they meant something by that. Again, these guys of antiquity, even if they speak in symbols, which they all do because they're all alchemists, so it's not going to be forefront. It's not going to be, that's what a lot of people don't understand. They want it to be black and white. Well, sometimes it's not that simple. A lot of guys want to be literal, you know?
Which is true, although that leaves room for interpretation.
That as well.
And so then we're having a battle of interpretation without any possibility of confirmation. Really,
I do
your gut instinct or your
reaction. I see a lot of both and in the Chariot card in particular, because not only is it potentially a lunar standstill, but also the North Star as well is the only star that stands still all the time. So that's something that Mario Garza has brought forward in a really powerful way, that the cosmic wheel is spinning on this one axle, and that axle is the Polaris, the North Star. So I think that there is a both and kind of fused into the art of the Chariot card here.
It leads to assumptions by the gut, and we know the gut is full of shit sometimes. So that's also another part of it.
So one other thing that is objectively provable is that the word North Node is actually an anagram for Odin throne. So the throne of Odin, which is the throne, is the seated, we're talking about these chairs.
Yeah.
So Odin's throne is fused into the word we use to describe the lunar standstill and the North Node. And then you can do the same with the south node, and it becomes Odin House. The Odin House is down below in the winter part of the months. So there's a throne up in the public in the sunny time of year, and then there's a house down below in the winter time of year.
The occulted
Although,
part.
I do have to point out that these are English issues, right? In the sense that it's an anagram in English.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it feels a bit like it's an English problem, you know?
Well, so
right?
I have an idea on that, because back then, what they've changed the language, that's the universal language, like the main language. Back then it was what, Latin, and then before that it was whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it goes back to it being an English problem, but what does a majority of the world nowadays speak? What is accepted as the academic language in a lot of these places around the world now? English. Back then it was Latin, and then they went and they changed, because again, I think Rome just switched hands. It just kept going. So that's my personal opinion on that.
I guess. I mean, I see what you're saying. I guess what I'm thinking is like some of these only work if we're thinking English. And the Vikings weren't that long ago, right? Like 400 or 500 years ago. So I feel like perhaps them, whoever they are definitely a more modern, and by more modern for me as a historian, I mean the last 1,000 years, maybe more, development. Not to say that secret cults or the occult is in modern development, but perhaps like these specific things that we're seeing are more recent.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
I think we could probably point at, Francis Bacon and Shakespeare, as the delivery system for this lingua franca of our day. They gave us they let the people come into the Globe Theater for free, just so that they get free bread and circus, but they were also consuming this new language as well, so that English could proliferate. And one thing that's interesting about English is it's has a lot of polysemal words, which was Shakespeare loved to play with, anagrams and palindromes and in multiple meanings, dual meaning.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, guys. I don't know. Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know how much of it is sort of
the ramblings of a madman.
No, I do like, I see the connections that you're making, and it's fascinating, actually. I guess so. And there's no way to be really certain how much of it is purposeful or how much of it is, or is
coincidence.
Yeah, not coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidence.
Well, this is why I bring this up. Reconstructed Roman Temple of Mithras opens to public, and where is it at? It's housed in the Bloomberg's European headquarters. Again, this is a reconstruction of a Mithraic temple by Michael Bloomberg at his headquarters in London. So,
and we're thinking that I can actually say 90% sure Mithra is Hephaestus, Auriga, specifically Auriga, the charioteer.
This is 5 years old. Okay, this is old. This is old news. This is from 2017, and it
opens in London. I did not see it. I would have loved to have gone see it. Now, this to me automatically would be just a symbol of power.
Yes,
but I guess as an archaeologist, I would also be skeptical about the reconstruction, as in what did they put in, what did they leave out, because of course that's a choice.
Well,
political choice.
About things that they put in foundations of buildings for certain. An opening ceremony is just that, a ceremony. In order to the missing cornerstone or whatever they call it, it's all related back to that. And how you're saying, what are the intentions behind this building? We're not going to know. That's the whole thing. But we know that to the ancients, it was very special. So why not harness that sort of energy back again to this harnessing of energy, the transference, correspondence, and use it for your own magical workings, even if it wasn't the original intended purpose. So
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, do we take into consideration that Mithras was originally a Middle Eastern divinity, that Mithras was originally a female, so therefore this divinity can even be considered a trans divinity because
Right.
androgynous.
was a she, or
Yes.
originally was a she. Do we take into consideration that Mithras is basically what we celebrate at Christmas? I mean, there's a lot of that, and that he had 12 apostles and all this kind of stuff.
And you had the Ben stone there, right? Because he had a stone as well. Wasn't he birthed from a stone? So you have the whole the navel of the world, but also, I hate to say it, Carla, but the androgynous alchemist is another thing where once the magnum opus, the great work is completed, you exist outside of space and time as an androgynous being, and you're able to come in and out of reality and affect reality from the outside. Again, it can either be symbolic or it can be literal, whatever way you want to do it, but it's a real life game of chess. And we know chess, they don't know the origins of it, but I believe chess is another real, again, alchemy at its core is affecting matter in order to affect in order to be able to step outside of that reality that we are able to perceive and affect it. So by you playing this game, using it as a simulacrum of the real world, whatever that is, and you're able to make a change in, whatever change you make in the game is able to affect the world that you're able to perceive outside of the game. I think that's what they're trying to do. When I think of any weird ritual or anything like that by the elites, by the lizard people, by the reptilians, whatever, I think of that. Using this energy in order to invoke a change, even if it's not like the Harry Potter bullshit that we've been led to believe, but some which way, rotate that energy and use it for their own purpose.
Well, that doesn't have to be necessarily a secretive or a conspiratorial thing. I mean, we know that we're a marketed society, right? I mean, that's not secretive, nor is it hidden. And because we know we're a marketed society, we know that we're then an influenced society. And obviously everybody knows, they don't have to even overthink it, that the news shifts our thinking and celebrities shift our thinking and all this. I mean, that's something that I think everyone kind of knows right now.
Right.
So, shifts our thinking.
But I think it becomes nefarious when there's only one agenda behind the manipulation. When you get to the top of the pyramid and there's not as many people and there's not any checks and balances, you realize, we're being led into this hive mind mentality where where free will might actually be completely at risk in a generation from now, like utterly no longer a thing, maybe even vilified. Like free will might get you in trouble for talking about it. You know what I mean?
Historically speaking, I think that's a cycle, in the sense that I think that there's always this wave that I think we're living in a wave we've lived in before. Like,
but we didn't have cell phones before.
True. We didn't have cell phones before. True.
And so if that all funnels to one tether, then eventually they won't need a stick for every flavor of personality. And you know what I mean?
Yes.
Theoretically.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, my belief is that the system will collapse at some point.
Yes.
And that we will return actually to the old ways.
Yep.
But in order to do that, we have to really reach like a system collapse, which I don't know if we're there yet. Like, I know people think so and people are worried about it, but I'm not sure how much of that is hype and how much of that is everyday reality. I'm not sure, because you step outside your house and the majority of people are living their lives. Life goes on. I mean, is this something that's going to happen in our lifetime?
I think the lockdowns are a real good indicator that that things have gotten dire. Things have gotten really dire. You know, the carrot and the stick thing. They've got a lot of people that with all that coercion, they got a lot of people, and now the dependency is multiplied. You know, there's so many more people are now going to require the intervention of daddy government just to live, just to have a longer life expectancy.
That's interesting. I don't know, because I agree with you in some ways. I feel almost though that the lockdowns and everything has now made people angrier. Like as far as Canada, for example, if our prime minister comes and says we're going to lock you down again, Canadians are going to set the world on fire. Like,
Absolutely.
right? So I feel like they've taken a pause and said, this is not the right time to push people too hard. Plus with inflation has people right at the edge of like anger and rage.
It's out of control.
So it's a little bit like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't predict. I mean, because they've had so much more training and psychological data than, let's say, kings and queens and emperors of old, who also tried these systems.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they are 10 steps ahead of us in sort of how to shift people. But human nature still is what it is. I mean, I don't know how long you can push people, like before people have nothing to lose, and then that's really when the system collapses.
Right.
I think maybe that's why it hasn't happened, because of systems like this where they're able to predict, like, hey, if we go one more, if we add this to the alchemical formula, we're going to get XYZ. So let's stop it right here. You know, they're pissed off, but it's fine. Hold it off and then let things cool down and proceed as, I think it's all done. It's all orchestrated. It's all done by design. But absolutely, I think people are waking up to these sort of shenanigans. And I think that the lockdowns and all these things, and just right now, what we were talking about before on air, these studies that are coming out, and people are like, wait a minute, now I regret doing this. So the next, it's like the boy who cried wolf, the next false flag or the next event that happens, people aren't going to just blindly follow. Maybe there's still going to be those people who will still there's still people who are driving around here in Florida, I don't know why, but inside their cars by themselves with masks on. I go, are you okay? Like, that's what Michael Jackson said. What is it, honey? Are you okay? What the hell was Annie? Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what it is, but once they lock into that frequency, they're able to stay in there. It reminds me of, no matter how scholarly the work is. I read, I don't know if you have any of you two, Gustav Le Bon, The Crowd. And it talks about how a crowd of people, and that can be a nation, there's a criteria, a nation, a neighborhood, a group of people, whatever, there's a criteria that it meets. That crowd becomes a living organism. And it's as smartest as the dumbest person in it. So the lowest IQ is as smart as that group is going to get, that crowd. And this is done by a French social psychologist, like scholar, prestigious. This is the work written in the 1800s, and it hasn't been disputed. And no matter what, when it comes to all this stuff, and this is why I believe the occult is intermingling in everything that we do, there is one thing that he couldn't explain, that he called a contagion. And he said that this contagion happens when people get together. There is something that comes out that weaves its way through the crowd and brings forth this bestial nature in people and makes them act a different way that they wouldn't act otherwise. But because they're in this setting. So it's a metaphysical thing that he can't even explain. Like, why is this happening? It's like, we don't know. We call it the contagion.
That sounds like COVID.
Well, that's an actual thing, right? But I'm saying, let me censor that word for the tubes. But
so you're saying it's like an energy, like mob mentality,
yes.
like a mosh pit mentality. Mm-hmm. Or whatever,
that energy and I think about like this black mist just going through everybody and changing. We see this in movies. They do that type of thing in movies. We got that black mist going through everybody and taking people over. And this is from a scholar that has written about. And another thing that he talks about is prestige that these elites put out. This metaphysical charisma that when these people are up front in the media, they put out this light, this energy where people are drawn to that. Look at Hitler, look at Mussolini, look at Mao, look at all these guys of antiquity who had control.
Antiquity.
Oh, of history.
Years, dude.
Of history. Oh, you give me somebody. Augustine, Caesar, Nero. Well, I mean, those guys are pieces of shit, but you get the point. They put out this energy that people,
right?
Yeah. He called it prestige, though. It was a sort of charisma, but the point being that even a scholar can't completely take out the metaphysical. Like, hey, this is how people react, but we still don't 100% know why they do that. And I think it's a metaphysical thing, a contagion. Well, what's that? I can't explain it. It just happens. I don't
know. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. Some people are charismatic, but let's say if I'm standing in front of my class and we have a good vibe and I'm teaching a subject and they're participating and it's awesome. You have the same thing you're talking about where there's something metaphysical happening. Everyone in the room is like feeling it. Although in this case, a positive thing.
Yeah. The setting, but again, intention. So, I'm sure Hitler was putting out a certain intent and intention in his words to do bad things to people, right? So when you're teaching, you're not putting that intention of wanting to harm somebody in that, you know what I'm saying? You're in a friendly environment, so it's different, but still you feel the energy, right? You feel the shift in the atmosphere when it comes to you teaching. And again, I mean, I feel the energy too when I'm doing podcasts and stuff like that, even if it's live or not. That's why I don't like doing live podcasts, because I feel like there's a shift in energy because the people looking and watching, not real time, but still they're watching. And it's even weird after the fact, after I put it out into the airwaves, I still feel weird about it because I don't know how people are going to react to it. Right now, I have zero clue how people are going to react to it, but live, people are reacting real time. They can call you a piece of shit real time, and you're like, wow, okay, sure. So that's why I don't like doing live shows. But again, it's something about the energy that you put out and
I think that's probably just energy science, if we can call it that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all energy, and we give off energy, and we receive energy. I think as a society, we have not been taught the power of our own energy.
Yes.
And I think that's what people are starting to wake up to now. It's certainly on trend a lot more. Like you wouldn't use even the word, your energy or divine energy. You wouldn't really use that, let's say even 10 years ago. That wasn't really a thing. But now, so I think that's maybe what once people are aware that their own energy affects their lives and other people's lives, then maybe we can believe in our own power.
Yeah.
Right?
That's all. Those ingredients are crucial to the feel grouping of the Enneagram. They are, there would be the 2s, 3s, and the 4s. They know very well the power of the energy in the unseen realm because they use their feelings to navigate the world. And meanwhile, the thinkers across the line, across the Cartesian split, over on the other side of the Enneagram, the thinkers, they're almost in denial of the feelers, and so I agree with you, Carla. It's totally the wave is coming back, and the feelers are going to have their day, and hopefully they can keep their minds together and stay uniform with the body-mind connection.
Well, this is what I'm seeing a lot of people talk about vibration now, which they hadn't talked about for a long time. A lot of people tell you, like, don't get caught up in the negative vibration, stay in the positive vibration. And sometimes, like, I do believe there's a bit of toxic positivity sometimes, where it's like, if you force someone to always be positive and put so much pressure on their positive, that person just, but I do see a lot more sort of emphasis on those words. And I feel like if once those words become on trend, and once those ideas become on trend, it gives us more power. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Every individual has to make their own decisions, but it gives us more power over what we emit then into the world, right?
Peace
and how we
and love,
protect
man.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
hippie.
I would like it to be all peace and love. I mean, every now and then somebody pisses you off, you're like, I'm gonna punch you, but you know, but yeah, I think we are, perhaps even just us talking about it, you know, and putting it out there, the fact that people are now more and more aware of, like, at least our energetic self, and that
Yeah.
that energy can be manipulated and that energy can be used.
Totally.
I think we're doing the work in some way.
Big time. Yep. It's good to build out a vehicle for even communicating it, and, you know, choosing these words and sharing them infuses them with more momentum and empowers the people who are going to listen later you know, I love that term, toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity is a big thing now. Yeah. Because everybody's big on love and light. And people are starting to say, okay, like, love and light is great, but if you're going through something, love and light may need to pause for a second, you know?
Right.
You know, so that talks about. And the other thing that I was going to say to you guys, I don't know if you heard, but recently, the University of Southern California just created a master's program, and it's called the Magic and the Occult.
So where's that at? I'm going to go get that.
University of Southern California. So this tells me, I mean, and as a person who's, you know, at a university, we would have never had a Magic and the Occult program like even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So what this told me is, like, there must be a demand.
Yes.
Right? There's a demand by young people to learn more about, and when I say magic, I think, you know, I'm using those kind of words around energy fields and around, you know. So when I saw that, I was like, holy crap, a master's degree in magic and the occult, that's really cool. But there's certainly a demand, or else they obviously wouldn't put it on there. And there'll probably be more and more of these programs as they try to get young people to go to school. Less and less young people want to go to university. You know, they're finding less value in it. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, the occult, a whole study in the occult.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. It's a great.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, because it goes back to the whole, it's being noticed and it's being taken more and more seriously. And not just a pseudoscience, which because that's what it's always been since the beginning, right? You have the Inquisitions, like it's like bad, and then you have this Christianization of everything with the Catholicism and Christianity and all these other religions, where it's like they take the mysticism out of it, and now there's a reemergence of it. Now there's a new reawaken, a new renaissance coming in. We're like, wait, this has an effect on reality in some which way, or you know what I mean, like in some way or form this affects reality. So I think that's why they're offering that. And you said that was where?
University of Southern California. And now, to blow our minds even more, I don't know if you saw the Nobel Peace Prize for Science went to someone, and don't quote me because I just saw it on and read about it. I'm going to quote you. Went to someone or a group of scientists who discovered that when a proton, and again, don't quote me. So from a body of something, of matter, a proton goes one way and another proton goes another way. These two protons can still communicate with, so it's like quantum leaping or quantum, right? These two protons can communicate with each other no matter how far.
Superstition, I think it is superposition. I think it's what it's called, where there's two things, quantum tunneling or something, where there's two separate sides of the universe. They can still be related. So that's magic.
I mean, so I thought, like, that again, even 10 years ago, that would be something that would be a bit considered. I don't know if that's really a place for you. That would be discouraged. And now,
that's cool. That's the Hermetic principle of correspondence.
That's right.
That's totally. Right. But in the physics language, that's really beautiful. That's exciting. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I thought so too. I when I was reading about it, I was like. But also the fact that it's getting so much credit rather than, again, magical cult, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Stuff. So, I don't know. I guess it's a bit of positivity.
Yeah. Well, the most recent eclipse, the solar eclipse that we just had, its pathway cut right through Oslo, Norway, where the Nobel Peace Prize is enthroned. And then it went right over the Nord Stream position where the Nord Stream maelstrom happened. The word Nord Stream in reverse is maelstrom. And so it was almost designed, in its name, it was designed to become this bubbling maelstrom in the ocean for a nice photo op. So it fulfilled its own name when the event happened. But the cut of the solar eclipse, it went right through Oslo, Nord Stream, and then it went through Turkey. It cut the Turkey, and then it went through Jerusalem, interestingly enough.
Interesting.
Yeah, it took a really fascinating pattern. So, the Nord Stream event is there was a lot infused into that, a whole lot infused into that. Can you pull up the most recent one, Juan, with the tarot card? This one is hard to explain because I actually had realizations about this that made me uncomfortable. I didn't know what I was seeing until I connected it to this is the tarot card that embodies the Charioteer, the location where the North Node eclipse, lunar standstill takes place. This card, if you put the cards in their zodiac position, this card is in Taurus. It corresponds with the bull. And this was making me really uncomfortable because her full name is Greta Tintin Eleonora Urmin Thunberg. It's a really long name, but she has the word Tintin. Her name is Tintin. And this is the card number 20. XX is 10 and 10. Mm-hmm. And this character here has this iconic ponytail. This is in the Crowley deck, specifically this card from the Crowley deck. He altered this. By the way, his artist who made his deck, who he commissioned to make the deck, her name was Lady Frida Harris. Mm-hmm. And her genetic line dissipates into obscurity in two locations, India and Jamaica. And guess where Vice President Harris, where her genetic line comes out of obscurity?
No.
India and Jamaica. So I do believe that the vice is a vicar, it's a vase, it's a cup, it's a reservoir. The vice president right now, the first female president, I think she is carrying the bloodline that was the artist that was commissioned to make this deck.
Oof.
And I know that's a huge jump, but the bloodline that made this art is now in the position of the vicar president. She's the vice president. Okay. Now this card was altered considerably from the old tarot systems. This is a very unique card to the Thoth deck. And it has the body of Nut. We all know about the Egyptian goddess of Nut.
Yeah.
And so she is the night sky up above. And in the background is, I think, maybe Osiris on a throne, enthroned, with the spirit of the new Aeon coming out of that throne as though he's breathing her into existence. And you can see the ghost image of this Aeon character who has the iconic ponytail that is powerfully correspondent with Greta Thunberg's ponytail. And her name is Tintin, which is correspondent to this Tintin, card number 20. And this is where it gets weird. When you take her full name, Tintin Eleonora Ernman Thunberg, it's an acronym. Her name is Greta Teet, T-E-E-T. And I was like, why? What is that great teat? And I was thinking, okay, like, you know, they expect daddy government to be the great teat in the sky that they can suckle from. You know, I was like trying to make this connection. And then I looked at the card and there is a great teat in the sky.
Some big titties right there.
Has her tatas hanging out. She is the great teat in the sky. And so it all came into fascinating correspondence for me. Now, it is also said that in Taurus, that is the birthplace of the Milky Way comes out of the breast of Taurus. So it is all esoterically uniform. It's not random. It is very uniform. And so the shape of Nut is also, so this is Nut who is nude. This is the nude Nut. This is the North Node. This is the node of the north, is the naked newt. And so all of these things are powerfully embodied in this card, the new Aeon card. And so what is really creepy to me is that I believe Greta is the embodiment of this card. She is a living new Aeon. She is also, we know she's on the autistic spectrum. She's double, she's tin. That's aluminum, is tin. So aluminum is the adjuvant that is in vaccinations. So she's double vaxxed. She's double wounded. She's the wounded like Hephaestus. She's been double injured by her parentage. Mythologically, I don't think she's I think she's a total fabricated construct. I think that she's an actress, a young actress. I don't think any of these things actually adhere in reality to the person who is playing this role. But her mythology has all the esoteric consistency, and it blows my mind. Absolutely.
But Gabe, okay, for all of these things to take effect, the things that you spend so much time putting together, the average person does not know that. Let's say. So why does it matter?
Because their higher self does know.
The average person's higher self.
All of our higher genius is perfectly capable of picking up on this.
The homunculus within all of us,
The grand collective.
Because this is really interesting. Because I love that Carla is the skeptic and she's asking all the great questions. Because that's what people are asking. Because they always ask us like, "What does it matter? Or what where are you getting? Are you reaching this or that?" Well, I mean, how you said it's up for interpretation, but. What Gabe is saying, absolutely, the higher self, the astral body, or whatever that even if you don't believe in it, they believe in it. You know what I'm saying? Right. They're the ones that believe in it. There's a reason, again, why these buildings are designed the way they are, because they have a door for your oversoul at these cathedrals. Where your light body is supposed to go through. Even if you don't believe, if you don't believe, they still believe that, and they manipulate that energy.
So you're saying, okay, so let's say Greta's in front of me. My higher self recognizes all of this packaging. And then what happens? Okay, so let's say that's all true. So then how did they profit from that? Like, what's the profit? What's the...
I think because we're technological enrichment breeds spiritual poverty. And so because we are so technologically left brain dependent, our right brain is starving. It's crying out in agony for, please give me some spiritual, some acknowledgement, some value in the world. Give me a role to play.
Okay.
And so while we are all stuck in this right and wrong linear thinking, our symbolic half of ourselves is starved for input. And so it will take this on, and it will interpret it and read it and see the consistency of the meaning way above and beyond ourselves. And we might not ever realize it, maybe in our dreams. You might go to sleep and you might have Greta in your dreams, and you're like, oh, why was I thinking about Greta? Well, it's because your genius was processing the symbolic consistency of this entire, like I said, the scaffolding. I read a very interesting book a long time ago, The Goddess versus the Alphabet. And it's a great book. And another book that I often confuse with it because they're so similar, so I always recommend them side by side, is The Chalice and the Blade.
Oh, I love The Chalice and the Blade.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So
I support The Chalice and the Blade.
Yes. So I do believe that, the symbolic half of our mind has been repressed for a very long time, but I also think it's been used unbeknownst to us, and that we do live in a world where symbolism actually has way more of a role than we think. Like even a do not park sign has a red zero with a line crossed through it. Well, that's it's both Saturnian. It's a Saturnian sign, which is the limitation, cosmically it's limitation. So like the symbolic language of our realm is still in place. We just don't acknowledge that we're
Twilight language. Yeah, green language.
Big time.
I can agree with that. I do think that unconsciously symbolic knowledge has been passed down to us.
Yeah.
We are in modern day, we are not aware. And I mean, I know that for a fact. Most people are not aware. Even when I just talk about some basic symbols, they go, oh. So I do agree with that. I'm not sure. I guess we don't really, there's no way to measure what our higher self recognizes, and then how that could be utilized against us.
Yeah. One thing that draws me in, that I cannot break away from, is that I will take these concepts and I'll actually because it's a complete system. Like the zodiac is complete. So when you find one piece, you have to go and test the other 11 pieces to make sure it has the consistency. Like I was doing with the Hercules story,
Right.
you know, and that's what's fascinating, because we can only talk about one thing at a time. But if you guys were here all day, I could, fill in the other 11 stations, and we could lock it into place and say, okay, this is consistent. And that's what I think that occult school in Southern California would be really good for doing, is giving people the whole picture, so that you don't just you're not just fishing for one connection. You have 12 locked and loaded, ready to go confirmations that this is a holistic system. And it really is. And that's why a lot of what I present is, you kind of got to take my word for it, because I've mapped it all out and charted all the other options, and the other options don't make sense unless this is true.
You're like, source,
you know what I mean?
Source, trust me, bro. I got my PhD from the University of YouTube. So, yeah, and definitely. And I always said that magical systems, and from my study of the occult, my study on magic and all this stuff, I've seen the evolution of the magical systems to fit the narrative of the practitioner at the end of it. Do I believe Biden is orchestrating some great cabal and doing a great magical ritual? Absolutely not. But the people around him probably are. If you look at him, he is a zombie. He's a homunculus. There's no which way around it. There's no way he's the big man, right, calling the shots. I think he is just a pawn in the game, and we know that at the end of that chessboard, what happens to the pawn? They are elevated. They are transformed. They transcend to that next tier, whichever one you pick. So again, I think it's a real life game of chess.
True. Although I should say that historically that's always been the case. The kings are pawns. Other political leaders are pawns. I mean, the king is literally an object on the board, if we're talking about the chessboard, and not a strong one to,
Yeah, exactly.
Not that he's a pawn. He's not quite there, but So yeah, so I think you're right, but I also think that's sort of the norm for power structures. That the person that we see is always, there's always like a whole.
Oh yeah, he's the facade. Yeah, he's the facade.
Totally.
That's probably maybe that's the reason is the hierarchy, because the hierarchy allows only one person at the top, but it's really the others, right? Really, so maybe it's in the nature of the pyramid that causes that, I don't know, but
they say, and this is, I only have a certain level of security clearance myself, but I've heard that the president is 29 levels down the rung, and that there are 20 some other security level clearances above the president, which leaves a lot of room for, the priest class to be pulling strings on a crazy level. So I sent you one more.
Talk about the capitalism pyramid.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I sent you one more there, Juan. This is just one more spell that I've seen that is really fascinating. I think you'll really enjoy the potential of this. And then once we're done with this one, we can go back to the Enneagram, and I want to just share some of the stations and talk about what you think about the Greek pantheon and the implication of these people. I think of it as like full spectrum dominance. That's actually a military term they use. But yeah, we'll get around to the whole complete Enneagram picture in a sec. So this is the story of Andromeda, which has other cultural emanations as well.
Okay.
Andromeda is a constellation. She's at the spring equinox. And in her story, she is given up as a sacrifice from her parents to Cephas, the sea monster, who's going to come and eat her. And that's going to make the sea monster, it's going to appease the sea monster so that the whatever has been plaguing the kingdom will subside. And so she's chained to these rocks, often at the shore side, which I think of that representing the water is like Pisces. We're coming out of Pisces, and now we're in Aries in the spring equinox, and that's actually where she's stationed in the sky. And so that's a very sacred location. We've talked about this in the past. It's right at the X of the Analema. If you turn the Analema into a calendar, then Andromeda is offered up as a sacrifice right at the marcation around 4:15, and she takes up she's also connected to Pegasus, which almost makes her 3 months long. So it's like real hard to miss the mark. She has a very long breadth of the sky clock. So as the stations are climbing out of winter and into the spring, that's where she is always locked in place. She's stuck there. She can't leave. And so then the year, we go into Taurus and we come around and we turn the corner, and then there's a descending line that is going to cross over the X. And that crossing of the X that will essentially overlap onto where her station is. That crossing of the X is on 8/27. It's a holiday called Vulturnalia. And they say that it's a veneration of the river goddess, which there is a body of water there. And so it fulfills the idea of this spirit of the water taking the offering of the sacrifice that was left there from the 4 months before. So in that aspect, Vulturnalia watching over Andromeda's location is fulfilled in the Analema. But we look at it from the story of Prometheus, which is very much the same thing. Prometheus is chained to the rock. He's stuck in place, much like Andromeda. And then isn't it harpies that come and eat his liver?
A vulture.
Vultures.
Yeah, eagle or vulture. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Vulturnalia is descending upon his location, and it's doing it for eternity over and over, which is the infinity sign, which is the Analema itself. And now this is really remarkable because today we have a modern day Prometheus, and a story of a modern day Prometheus. It's Julian Assange. And so Julian Assange was locked in the embassy of Ecuador for 7 years in, some form of punishment or atonement for his sins. He was paying for giving the fire of knowledge to mankind. He gave us information that we weren't supposed to have. The forbidden fruit was passed on to the masses. And so his punishment was being locked in this ambassador or embassy of Ecuador. Well, look at the flag of the embassy of Ecuador. It has a vulture perched on the top of the icon.
Yeah, it is a vulture.
It's a vulture. He was stuck in the embassy, and the embassy had the symbol of the vulture on it all along. And
okay,
and it even has the fairy. If you look in the archway of the flag, it has a fairy going the long way across the river. So that's Prometheus is the light bearer. He's the Lucifer. He's carrying the light. Well, this fairy is actually going across the river, and it has a caduceus also very subtly in place on the boat on that flag. So I found this to be an absolutely fascinating reenactment of celestial dynamics that repeat for eternity, forever and ever. So the definition of magic is harnessing natural phenomenon in accordance to your will. And so theoretically, this is like a dramatic replay of natural systems that are going to happen inevitably in accordance to the will of somebody who doesn't want us to get information anymore and wants to lock us down and, label or even give people the thought that they might be considered a terrorist if they brought forbidden information forward.
Okay. I have a couple of points of clarification.
Okay.
I guess my first one. Okay, so Prometheus comes first before Andromeda.
Oh, that's great to know.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Prometheus is the creator of human beings, right?
Okay.
He creates man from clay, basically to take care of the garden, which is the earth. It's basically the story of Genesis, but 3,000 years before the story of Genesis is a story. So Prometheus creates man. In fact, there's like a few generations. At first, he creates only men, and then they end up dying. And he actually creates them maybe a couple of times, I think, before he's like, okay, I keep making these guys. And
they're fucking retarded. They keep dying.
No, but like they're not reproducing. And then he realized, oh shit, I have to make matching pairs. And then he makes like matching pairs, and then they reproduce themselves, so he doesn't have to keep doing the work. Anyways, and then the reason why he steals fire from Zeus, of course, is because they're not surviving very well, the humans. And so he goes and steals fire, and therefore his punishment is this. But he is liberated by Hercules eventually.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's liberated by Hercules. So he's meant to be there forever, but he doesn't end up being there forever. And then Andromeda, I guess, is a little different because although she is chained to a rock, though that seems to be sort of Greek mythology cliche, she's offered as a sacrifice, right? So she's offered as a sacrifice to the monster that Perseus ends up slaying. And Perseus is riding Pegasus. Pegasus comes out of the neck of Medusa after Perseus kills her. And then he rescues Andromeda and ends up marrying her. And, they don't live happily ever after.
What a weird tale. It's
a heroic tale, right? There's a maiden in distress. She's chained to a wall. Perseus comes flying on his horse. He kills the evil monster. He cuts her chains. He frees her.
Yeah. I have a question. Is Prometheus, does he have white hair? Is there anything to the white hair of Prometheus?
I don't know. He's a Titan.
Okay.
So I don't know. Pull up some images. There aren't that many images of Prometheus, to be honest, in the ancient world. Now, again, so we got to be aware of like when are we looking? If we're looking at Europeans drawing him,
it would be really cool if he did have white hair, because Andromeda, her head is it's inside of Pegasus. It's partially in the stars, in the
I saw that.
astrologically.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so the fact that Julian Assange has white hair corresponds with the fact that Pegasus is a white horse.
Yeah.
So it is strangely appropriate from the Julian Assange angle of the story.
I do think that the Julian Assange story could be sort of a metaphor for Prometheus's punishment. Although I'm not sure if those two are directly related, other than the modern interpretation of ancient myth punishment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of an image of Prometheus that is of the ancient world.
Not seeing anything.
No.
I've
There's not that many Titans in the ancient world, depicted in the ancient world. Even Kronos has very little depiction.
Yeah.
Rhea maybe a little bit more, but yeah, Prometheus. I think on the vases, you might find him on the vases, Juan. You might see Prometheus on the vase. But yeah, I don't think there's even a statue of him or anything like so. I don't know what
Yeah,
color.
he's on vases, but I don't see anything else.
Yeah. And that's like red. That's red figure. So I don't think
Yeah.
there's. I don't know if he has white hair in those or anything.
It's
But
black.
yeah.
I think one thing that we might be able to say about Prometheus and the color white is that when phosphorus burns, it often is so brilliant that it burns white. It's white hot, which is like the hottest form of explosion that there is. So in that aspect, we might be able to correspond the white with Prometheus being like the brightest of fires possible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Prometheus definitely is the life giver of humans for the Greeks. And not just in creation, but also in giving them fire and light. So the light giver.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that Assange chose to have white hair. I think that's part of his bio is he was, blonde when he was young. And then at some point he just went with the white as like maybe symbolic of the Promethean story.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, exactly. So some people do find a myth and then associate themselves with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we read into that? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And from a conspiratorial angle, there is a family fraternitas, is a German secret society that I think today is called the Family International. And the Family International, the best way to maybe see an example of them, it was in the movie Utopia. And in Utopia, there's a whole cult family of extremists who are actually actors, like an international actors guild, who go on and stage events to steer history in a certain direction. Okay. And so Family International, one of their icons, the way that you know that you're dealing with them is that they have white hair. They're like a sacrificial lamb, the untainted sacrificial lamb. And some examples, and this might or might not be true, but Phil Donahue, he had white hair and he made a righteous stand against the Iraq war and he got sacrificed. And another strange example that hasn't been sacrificed yet is Anderson Cooper. And he does have connections to the Family International because he was CIA and he will always be CIA. But he rocks the white hair as well. And he's on a high horse. He's a hero figure. So he might not be as much Andromeda as he is the Pegasus,
That's interesting because when I think about the Greek gods, golden hair maybe, or light of hair. Light of hair is probably an expression that Homer uses. Light of hair and fair of face. But there's no actual ancient depictions. At least now they're doing recolorization of statues, so that's really exciting. Maybe once they start recolorizing some statues, we may see some of that. But color-wise, I haven't heard any of the gods having white hair. In modern times, they do the old dude with the white hair for Zeus But again, that's a modern interpretation, and then it's affected by modernity. But yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know. Yeah.
What are the closing thoughts, Gabe, as we approach the 3-hour mark?
Oh, yeah. We got to get this thing done, right?
Do people listen to us for 3 hours, do you think?
Fuck if I know.
Or are they all passed out, like sleeping now?
That was a heck of a ride. Well, I'll send you my this is my rough draft of the world leaders. This is nothing about this is final or absolute at all. There's definitely more examples stacked into each position. There's probably better examples that haven't even occurred to me yet. But I just wanted to maybe flash this graphic and see what you thought about it, because I'm really excited about particularly my Athena. I really like who I've picked for Athena, and I want to see what you think about my Athena candidate, we'll say.
Okay.
So.
I don't know who that is.
It's Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard she was one of the Democratic candidates when they had 20 candidates the last time around. She was one of the 20.
Oh, and sorry, I'm not that well versed in American.
It's because you're Canadian.
That's good. Maybe I shouldn't taint you with this bullshit. but she is battle tested. She's actually has a lot of military experience. She was in the Iraq War. She was a politician in Hawaii, which is really fascinating because Auriga is the charioteer over in the 8, who is related to Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she balances the 8. The 1 and the 8 are balancing each other out.
Okay.
And now think of this, because this is really cool, I think. Athena was parthenogenetically created by Zeus.
Not really, but okay.
Really, yeah, like popped out of his head, was born out of his brain in a weird way. And then Auriga,
the historian in me is like, wait, okay, yeah, go on.
Right. But they were both, and they create. So the 1 and the 8 draw a line to their parent. So Athena was born out of Zeus's head. So the 1 connects to the 7. And Auriga was born out of Hera parthenogenetically, and the 8 connects over to the 2. And so they both have this powerfully balanced position in the Enneagram of the reformer and the leader in those 2 positions. And so I just find that fascinating that in those the 8, 9, and 1 are the act. They're the body, the instinct, categorically. And so they are like the left hand and the right hand of the throne of the 9 in a very fascinating way. But they're like powerfully related to each other archetypally, and their story and their myth, it has that similar ring to it. And if now help me out, because I believe that Hephaestus, he made that contraption where Aphrodite and Ares would be trapped in the act of coitus,
Mm-hmm.
and they were locked in a net.
Mm-hmm.
And then he invited the other gods to come and laugh at them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is really fascinating, so the charioteer, Auriga, Hephaestus, the 8, it connects down to Hera. If you follow the line, it goes to Hera, his mother. And once he got her locked in place and earned her favor, he was granted a wish. And he wanted to marry Athena, but Athena's like, nah, I don't roll that way, bro.
Yeah.
So he had to bounce down. See how the line goes down to Aphrodite?
Yeah.
And he ended up marrying Aphrodite instead.
Yeah.
But Aphrodite was running game behind his back, and she was connected, followed the line up to Ares.
Okay.
And so Aphrodite and Ares were getting down with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and he trapped them in a net with his contraption. And so in the craziest way, the dynamics of the Enneagram express the mythology of these dynamics of the characters. In it's really remarkable to me.
Okay, but you placed those names there.
Yes, yes. But they fit their personalities, like Athena couldn't.
I think you got it pretty right, except I don't know if I would switch. Why is Zeus not the leader challenger? Why is Zeus the enthusiast?
Because I think the leader challenger. There's a lot of ingredients missing here, but there are planetary placements as well. There's a planetary overlay onto the Enneagram, and so number 8, the challenger leader, is Saturnian. It has the symbol of Saturn. So I generally consider it Kronos or Saturn. And then the planetary placement for number 7, the enthusiast, is Jupiter, the planet Jupiter. And so that's why I put Jupiter with Zeus, because he was born out of Kronos. And so that's actually the planetary placements are like a cheat sheet that also reinforce my guesswork here. So Aphrodite is Venus, has Venetian energy, So
Yeah.
there is a whole nother layer of correspondence that I couldn't fit. I ran out of time making my graphic here, but there is a planetary cheat sheet that reinforces this as well, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
But then my only complaint is that Athena is not born parthenogenetically.
Okay. What would
She
you
has
call?
a mother, right? She has
Yes.
a mother. Her name is Matisse, her mother.
Yes.
And right, in an attempt to hide the mother from jealous Hera,
Yes.
Zeus swallows the pregnant mother.
Right.
And then the pregnant mother gives birth inside of Zeus. And I don't know what happens to the pregnant mother. She disappears. And then
Yes.
Athena jumps out of his head, like you said.
Right. And I heard today that somebody said that Metis was actually when he ate her, she was inside, she was crafting the armor for Athena
Yes,
to.
I've heard that too, actually. Yes.
I
Yes.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And,
that's kind of cool. But I do think that story tries to make Zeus a parthenogenetic creator,
right.
to take away from the fact that all parthenogenesis is done by goddesses.
Totally. I agree. It's tricky because could we say it's a homunculus? Because it's made by a man, it's not parthenogenetic, it's a homunculus that's born. I don't know.
Oh, poor Athena, poor Athena. If Matisse was not in his body, then maybe you would be right. Yeah. But other
Yeah.
than that, I think she has a pretty regular birth. But it's interesting that then it's almost like Hephaestus, when he cracks his head open, it's almost like opens a brain womb, and
Right.
Athena is supposed to, pop out of that.
Right. And you know what's kind of neat about that? Look, Hephaestus is above him.
Yeah.
Like, Hephaestus would just have to reach down and tap him on the head, and then she would pop over to the one position.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I put, there's so much more to this, and we've already spent all our time, but I put, Kamala Harris, I put her in the position of Hera.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that she, and I think that may have a lot to do with the artist who, with her lineage, her bloodline. I think she comes from a royal bloodline that, having those roots in Jamaica and over in India, I think she does come from, Hera wasn't she an Eastern deity who was fused with the Western Zeus when they married?
Yeah, she could be traced back there. She could be traced to a few places, but certainly that would be one of them. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So, so I put Kamala Harris in there as in Hera's position, and the name is so correspondent, it kind of begs to be infused there. And then it drops down to Neptune, or Dionysus is also a 3. But Neptune was the planetary correspondence. It has the planet Neptune. It fits into the number 3.
Mm.
And so I put King Charles here because of one thing about Neptunian energy is that it has a lot to do with drugs and intoxicants, and you're swaying on the ebb and the flow of the tides of the waters. So Dionysus fits because of that intoxication.
Yeah, I was thinking Dionysus more than Neptune there. Yeah, or
Yeah.
Bacchus, I guess, if we're using Roman terms.
I love that. Nice. So King Charles, his official cipher is a RC, which in gematria is a 93, and the 93rd periodic element on the periodic table is Neptunium. So in a really fascinating way, he's holding the scythe of Neptune, or the psi, PSI, the psi, which is the last Greek letter of the Greek alphabet, and it's used in many. It's almost it's drunk on its own implications because they use PSI in all of the arts and sciences. So it's vast, like the ocean.
Yeah.
Then I got Elon Musk over here as Aphrodite, because the word Elon is a French word. It means like uniquely formed. And so he thinks he's so special. and it has the shadow of envy, and a lot of people envy him for all of his theatrics. But then I put Julian Assange. I put him as Hermes because he's like the messenger in a fun kind of way. So I just threw him in there, the thinker and the observer. Now Apollo and Artemis, I think of, they're twins,
Right.
And so we're in the thinking. We're at the pinnacle of the thinking grouping. 5, 6, and 7 are thinkers. And so I think of Apollo as like the epitome of thoughtful accomplishment. You know what I mean? Culturally. And oppositional to Dionysus over in the 3 position. So it's like your Dionysian is like the feel aspect, and the Apollo is the think aspect. And so I also think of like even the word populace, the populace, the civilized minds are the populace. So they live in the cities. And so I put Zuckerberg in there because Berg literally means city. And his name could translate to city sucker, Zuckerberg. But then he does have a twin there with old Jack Dorsey. It's Facebook and Twitter were kind of their own parallel universes in a fascinating way. So yeah, I put Dorsey and Zuckerberg in that position of the 6, the questioners. If you break their policies, then you get kicked out of their city. Which I actually like Artemis as the wilderness, not in the city. If you're not with Apollo, then you get kicked out to the wilderness with Artemis.
Right.
And that's kind of the duality of the 6 that I like a lot. And then I had to, I don't like him any more than anybody else, but Putin, his name is like Peter, which is Jupiter. He also, it's Putin, and tin is correspondent with the planet Jupiter. And even the country of Russia is like gluttonous. It takes up so much space. It's so broad. So the shadow of the enthusiast, or the shadow of a 7, is glutton. So I give him the position of the gluttonist. And then frickin' Donald Trump, that turd, he's got to be the challenger, the leader, the Saturnian energy. He's got a hair swoosh that looks like the planet Saturn. And every night, part of his mythology is that he ate McDonald's every night. And so that's just fascinating because Kronos ate his own children. Mac means son of. So every night, Donald Trump was eating the son of Trump, or the son of Donald. So his mythology embodies that he is eating his own young. And then, now this is, so I put him next to Greta, which makes no sense. It makes no sense at first glance. But if you think of them as both being challengers, they are both challenging the status quo in a major way. It's almost like if you don't think that Donald is your challenger, then you got Greta is going to be your challenger. And if you're not triggered by Greta, then you got Donald to challenge you. And then I got to point out that the word Donald in reverse is de la node. D''LANOD. He's of the node. So his name also wears the mantle of these nodes, of the lunar standstill significance, same as Greta does with the Tintin and the Aeon card that we covered. So he has a node. He is of the node in his iconography. And then the peacemaker and the slothful one, or the balanced one, or the mediator, I put Biden here. And I know this is kind of odd too, but in the planetary correspondence, it's the planet Pluto is stationed as the 9. And the shape of Pluto is, the symbol of Pluto is a bident. It's not a trident. A trident is 3-pronged. Mm-hmm. Biden is a bident. It's a 2-pronged fork. And so his whole name is Joseph Robinette. He's got a net in one hand, and he's got a bident in the other hand. And those are the weapons of the gladiator, of the arena of the gladiator. And Pluto, in his mythology, doesn't he like kidnap a child?
He takes Persephone.
He takes Persephone. He steals Persephone.
That's right.
And so Joseph Bident is always sniffing the kids. He's always copping a feel on the children. He's the big sniffer. And so he, in the craziest way, I mean, I've seen artistic depictions of Pluto like riding away with that child in his arms.
With Persephone, yeah.
So the grabbing,
yeah.
So the grabbing of a child and the stealing of innocence is strangely embodied in this slothful dimwit. Pluto planetarially is a dimwit. It's a dim light that moves incredibly slow. And Joseph Robinette Bident can't even get across the stage without somebody trying to help him along.
It's the sloth.
He's the slothful one. So that's like a quick run through. And I know that the planetary cheat sheet might have helped a lot with convincing anybody who's on the fence. But I think we've got a 9-9 match.
Well,
wow.
I'll be glad to see what your developments are on that, Gabe, because I know this is, especially when it comes to building your own ideologies and stuff like that, it comes with time. And when we're studying one subject, obviously when you become an esotericist or something, you always add to that knowledge. So very intriguing. I love the idea. It makes sense to me, and I love the fact that Carla was the skeptic today. She was really pushing up against. She's like, "Well,
that should be my intro." So we brought a skeptic with us today.
I love that. I totally love that. That's awesome. I need that because it helps me develop the vehicle for conveying the information. Mm-hmm. It's great to have all the more pushback, the better. I totally love it.
I love it because sometimes when people question me, I'll be like, that's a very good question. I don't have an answer for that. So I love it. I love it. Any closing thoughts so we can head out of here, and any closing ideas or conclusions that you want to throw in there before we sign off?
You first, Carla.
No closing ideas, but this was a lot of fun. I do see how much work you put into it, Gabe, whether or not we agree on it. And some of it I do think is like, wow, that's interesting connections, like, right, unexpected connections. So I appreciate all of this work that you're doing.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's about it. It was fun. I had a blast.
Yeah, what a roller coaster.
That was a good old time. Thank you guys for sitting through with me. It's good that we did this before our next project, Juan, because I'm kind of going to keep the same framework because doing this work actually set me up for the project Juan and I are going to do because I realized that the tarot cards actually follow the same one. Station 1 is the Fool card. Station 2 is the Magi. Station 3 is the High Priestess. The tarot cards actually fit also perfectly as you roll through the Enneagram as well. So the consistency of this system fitting into the tarot and to the movies that we're probably going to break down in future projects, which are top secret. 29 levels of security clearance above this, so don't tell anybody.
Yeah, we're going to be following the Polit-Occult Enneagram. That's what I named it, so really like that.
Thank you for that. Dang.
The Polit-Occult Enneagram, so.
Oh, wow, that's great. We just christened the theory.
That's right. But yeah, I'm really excited for the next episode we're going to be doing. It's not a big secret. It's the de-occulting of Star Wars, because why not, right? The lizard people are at the core of it, so it's got to have some